District Council February meeting underway, and please could I ask Councillor Truman from Mangakino to give us a blessing for the day. Thank you, Councillor Truman.
I te atua kaharawa kia tatamai koe ki a mātou I tēnei rā, manaaki te a mātou mahi katoa, I runga I te ingoa, o te matua, o te tama, o te wairua tapu, ake ake, āmene.
Thank you very much, Councillor Truman. And just to remember everyone, we're going live stream today around the world, hopefully, and to locals who can't make it today. So if we can all have our speakers on and talk nice and clearly into the microphones, will be great. Are we underway, Lisa? Yeah, cool. Just before I go to apologies, I'd like to call on a minute's silence for Mr. Don Campbell from Turangi, previous Deputy Chair of the Community Board and long-standing Community Board member. Don unfortunately passed away on Saturday, I think it was Saturday, but myself and Barry, I know, worked with Don. Not too sure if anyone else knew Don, but he was a great advocate for that particular area and hard worker. So we could just have a minute's silence now just to remember Don, whose service is right at this moment. So that's why Councillor Stewart is away. She's representing us down there today. So thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Right, item 1 is on the order of business today. There's apologies, and we have them from Councillor Stewart, Councillor Kingi, otherwise a full house. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Hickling, seconded by Councillor Williamson. All those in favour, please say aye. Is against? Carried. Item 2, conflicts of interest. Has anyone got any conflicts of interest today pertaining to any of the items? No? Okay. So we go to item 3, confirmation of the minutes of the previous ordinary council meeting on the 31st of January. Any items of clarification of those minutes?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councillor Body.
Mr. Chairman, at that meeting, I refer to 4.2. We raised the question of the LTP, the long-term plan, being incorrect in the 1920 year for that Pohupi widening. That's not mentioned here. How will that be corrected within our books if it's it said 300,000 when in fact it was 256,000? How do we alter that? How does that appear in the books?
So you clarified the minutes at the last meeting? Is that what was the correction for the last minutes?
No. What we did at the last meeting, when we went to bring a year forward, we were told that the budget was for 300,000. In fact, in the long-term plan document, it's for 256,000, which was recognised as being correct. But there's no note of it in the minutes of that last meeting, which was done on the 31st. So I'm just wondering, where does that sit within the books? And maybe Mr. Manhattan could answer that. Because we don't have 100,000, what it was going to be left for the next financial year. We only have 56,000.
So an item was discussed at the last meeting, but it's not in the minutes. Is that what we're getting to?
And these are the minutes of the last meeting, so therefore it should be captured in the minutes.
Okay. So we need to adjust these minutes?
Yes.
So those particular ones will be...
So there will be an adjustment in the minutes. Thank you.
So when we move them, they'll be amended minutes. Yep, cool. All right, any other points of clarification of those minutes? No? Okay, Shannon, have you got that amendment? Okay, so would someone like to move the amended minutes? Thank you, Councillor Jolland, seconded by Councillor Body. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 3.2, the extraordinary council meeting on the 11th of February 2019. Any points of clarification on those minutes?
Your Worship.
Councillor Hickling.
Not a point of clarification, but I'd like to take the opportunity to probably talk to the minutes in terms of the cultural precinct. The council initially went out with 4 options, which included the museum. Now we've only got 1 option that includes the museum. The 3 options, there is 3 options that that don't include the museum. I am concerned that if, through the submissions, that if one of those options are chosen that don't include the museum, it means that we've gone out to the public, and our arts community have been incited and I kind of put it encouraged to support, and probably it won't come to fruition. So what I'm hoping I can do is, we have an item on the agenda, the consultation document, and I would like councils through the meeting to think about the opportunity of trying to incorporate some storyline into that consultation document to perhaps further investigate the opportunity to proceed with a museum as a separate entity. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kling. Okay, we'll consider that. The councillor's duly noted. Thank you for that, Councillor Kling. Councillor Boddy.
Mr. Chairman, this is not an alteration. There are some figures in the document we're looking at the moment that are different to the long-term plan going out for draft. I've sent an email to Mr. Tattle over that, and I'll discuss it at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other points of clarification on the extraordinary meeting on the 11th of February? Okay, could I have a mover, please, for those minutes? Moved by Councillor Park, seconded by Councillor Rankin. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Right, 4.1, the ordinary Turangi Tongariro Community Board meeting on the 9th of October 2018.
Your Worship, because there's no representatives from our Turangi councillors, I'd just like to draw the attention of councils to the recommendation from the Turangi Community Board regarding the fishing club and the accepting the ownership of a water pump to enable the so we're taking ownership of that water pump. So that's the resolution up on there, and it's a recommendation from the TT board.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, any other points of clarification? So we'll adopt those minutes with that suggested recommendation. I'm happy to move.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Hickling. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's against? Carried. 4.2, ordinary fences, roading, reserves and dog committee meeting held on the 31st of January. Any points of clarification on those minutes? Mr. Chair, are you happy to?
Yeah, as the Chair, Your Worship, I'd like to move that they are true and correct record of that meeting.
Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Hickling.
I'll second his.
Seconded by Councillor Boddy. Thank you very much. All those in favour, please say aye. It's against? Carried. 5.1. Petition trees in reserve next to Doherty Drive. Taupo. Evan Graham, how are you?
Hello,
Good
fine,
to
thank
see
you.
Okay, so you're presenting the petition
Okay,
today?
sure.
Yep.
Right, good afternoon. My name is Heather Anderson. I'm a resident of 20 the Pheasant Tail, Brentwood. My husband Graham, sitting here, neighbour of ours just over the back there. I'm here this afternoon to present to the Taupo District Council a petition and relevant photographs regarding the council reserve running north and south of Doherty Drive. Before I go any further, I'd like to point out that I'm here not because I hate trees. I love them, but they're a limit in this instance. As you're aware, or at least should be, we and our neighbours have approached the Taupo District Council to remove and clean up rubbish and to trim and remove some of the trees that border onto our boundary fences. This reserve has become overgrown and messy, and it's now completely out of control with new growth this season. It's also a major health and safety hazard, particularly in regard to fire. We also have to contend with trees that overhang into our properties, or tower over fences, or push against fences, thus meaning that we as householders have to do any necessary trimming. This is okay to a point, but in the case of the elderly, we're not prepared to be climbing ladders or to prune back branches which overhang our properties, as this is a danger for us. At the present time, some of these trees are 8 to 10 metres tall, some natives, such as manuka, pittosporum and kanuka, which could be trimmed or replaced with kowhai, which means that as a deciduous tree we get more light onto our land. Some non-native species, such as birch, bird cherry, oaks, etc., are way too high and should be removed. It's only after 10 o'clock in the morning in summer before I can get any sunlight onto my rear garden and onto my clothesline. In winter, I get nothing at all. There is also a major health risk in that rats are also breeding and have made nests in the rubbish that's been left behind. Trimmings, branches, dead grass, etc. This also adds to the fire risk. Rat traps and now cats have been busy trying to contain the rat problem, but this should be a matter for council, not individual householders. That's what we're paying rates for. Blackberry is another plant which has established itself in and around the trees and which will ultimately end up in our properties, thus causing householders to have to fork out for clearance of this noxious pest. The views of some householders are being spoilt by the said trees and thus possibly devaluing their properties when at the point of sale in the future. To date, I myself have been given the runaround by council regarding these trees, but today I am here to tell you that I've had enough. I'm sick and tired of paying higher power bills to dry my washing when I should be able to put my clothes on the line. I'm also sick and tired of being told that you cannot trim native trees due to legislation, when in fact I look out of my front window at the very hypocrisy of that statement. The council gardens opposite our front door were all done up just prior to Christmas, and very nicely too, thank you, and those native trees were trimmed into nice tidy shapes. Finally, if there were an unfortunate circumstance that a fire should rage through these badly maintained reserves, my insurance company will be acting on my behalf to claim any damages to my property back from council. Sections are now quite small compared to the past, and trees from other sources should not invade the space that you've paid good money for. All we're asking is that Taupo District Council consider their neighbours when it comes to the planting and management of trees on their properties, and if a request is made for them to deal with an issue, that it's dealt with quickly and efficiently to minimise any aggravation that may arise should it be ignored. The ideal solution would be to top the native and remove some of the non-native species so that better airflow can be achieved. As currently, we are trapped in an airless environment with no through flow and temperatures of 30 degrees C, and that sunlight is available to all that border onto these reserves, thus allowing the planting of vegetable gardens, etc. This might also allow the area to be better maintained by grassing or barking under the trees. As a neighbourhood, we're all trying to live our lives, enjoy our homes and gardens, plant trees in our own properties, and maintaining those trees so that they don't become an issue with our neighbours. We expect that the Taupo District Council will do the same. Be a good neighbour.
Sorry. Only that Heather's produced some photos and
I've got photographs
of the areas.
Of the areas, rats included.
That's attached to this.
And I've also even brought my power bill to show the difference that I'm paying every winter, which is around about $150 more per month than I would normally, just trying to get my clothes dried. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I thought we had visited this situation previously and been to investigate it and be reported back. Am I right in that?
I'm not too sure.
No, this is a different area. It's further up the gully. We dealt with the area below Doherty Drive last year. I don't think we made too much difference, but we did take 10 or 15 trees down. I've actually been and had a look at the property when we got the email through, and yeah, there's concern right the way through this particular gully.
So what we're doing today is formally receiving the petition. So obviously it'll come up as an agenda item or a discussion document somewhere in the future. So yeah.
Suggest that we put it to Fred to
Fred committee, yeah, sure.
When is the next Fred committee? Pardon? Okay.
Unfortunately, I won't be here.
through the chair, we can, between now and the 16th,
I'll be on
obviously we
holiday.
can, as officers, liaise with yourself and,
Yep.
and get to a position.
Yeah, cool. So when are you going away, Heather? Sorry.
We leave on the 15th
Of?
April.
Okay, yeah. So what Mr. Green is saying that obviously the officers and committee members will get together and see if we can sort of organise where we're sort of heading to before that meeting. So
My
some
main
action
concern is at the
important today.
moment, we've still got hopefully a bit of summer to come.
Yep.
But when you see the photographs and you see the height of the grass, the rubbish, the blackberry and broom,
Yep.
as well as what's under the trees, the rubbish, it just needs for someone to leave something there, such as a bottle of water even, and for that to be magnified, and we've got a raging fire.
Yeah, sure.
So
Councillor Rankin?
does it have to go to a committee? Why can't we just fix it? I mean, it's just people come to me with issues like this all the time, they just get fixed. Why do we have to make it into some big deal?
So, sorry, through the
Yeah.
chair, if I could elaborate on this. Obviously we've received the petition. The operations team have been in contact with Mrs. Anderson here, and we've got a team arriving there early next week to have a discussion. Plus, they'll be having a discussion with the other neighbours who are part of the petition. So.
Okay.
Councillor Boddy?
Just to follow on to that, and thank you for coming today, because I do get a lot of calls from your area, and I recently walked through the Lakewood Drive Reserve with the long faxes, the rodents, etc. It's interesting you raised the good neighbour, because our policy that was changed in 2014 states, as a good neighbour, blah blah, will be sensitive to the desires of adjoining neighbours when planting trees and vegetation, desire for views on private property. So you're spot on. It's all very well for staff, and I had an incident with Puniwai where the council, after one call to our CEO, it was cleaned up, blackberry get into the property. My concern is to cut down a tree, you have to have the Fred Committee's authority unless it gets transfers to council. That's the biggest difficulty that we've got. The rubbish and that is a simple matter. It's the felling of trees under the policy. So that really needs to be looked at. So I'm not quite sure how to handle Mr. Green. Maybe able to give a better suggestion.
So no, that's exactly why we're talking what we're talking. So as Kevin says, the team will get up there, we'll have a look and we'll see what we can do. There'll be a whole lot of stuff that we can do just now, and that'll be clearing up blackberry and things like that. Things that under policy we need to come back to Fred for. We'll aim for that April meeting to be able to do that, so that then you can get it all resolved by the end of that. There's a certain amount of things that we can do operationally and just get in there and do.
But excuse me, as Christine says, this has been going on for probably over 3 years. It's not just the trees, it is the rubbish behind Woburn Place that is on their boundary, on the pheasant tail that comes down as far as we are in Prince Bay. Just fix it, as Christine says. I mean, I can't believe that it's gone on and on and on, and I have attended meetings, and really, here we are, another one. I'm sorry, but I mean, it's just a lot of rubbish out there on this particular reserve and guppy.
Cool. Okay, so
Just quickly,
Councillor Harvey?
sympathise, frustrated as well. I'm with Christine, just fix it. When you are going, Kevin, or whoever's going to have a look next week, can you just send us an invite? Because I'd like to have a look around at the same time. Thank you. Thanks.
Good. All right, there's a suggested recommendation there to receive the petition. Sounds like things are underway, so hopefully we'll be in touch. And nothing else I have to amend on that? Receiving the petition today, yeah. Cool, thank you. Could I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Hickling. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's against? Carried. Thanks, Graham. Good to see you. And Heather. Right, 5.2. Petition to stop traffic lights at Norman Swift Street, Waireki Drive, and which we received formally after the march the other day, so we've got that there. So good afternoon, Paul. Mr. Paul Henson, and let Paul have a talk to the petition.
Cool. Thank you, Mayor, Councillors. Thanks for the invitation along today. Just a brief background on the process. That in terms of the traffic lights, they were introduced to the long-term plan, 7 sets of traffic lights last year, I believe. There were submissions put forward mainly by myself and some others. The 6 sets of traffic lights were removed from the long-term plan, but 1 set was proposed to carry on. There was a resolution put forward by Councillor Park to carry on with traffic lights at Norman Smith, Wairake Drive intersection, with no particular reason. I've been trying to find out what the reason was for that, for the plans to carry forward with lights at Norman Smith, but been unable to from any of the councillors or mayor. So talking to people around town, basically nobody I have talked to, not a single person, likes the idea of traffic lights. So I started a petition in late 2018, ran for 5 weeks. I got just over 1,000 signatures, I think 1,070 or so, against the traffic lights. So just a complete mystery, really. Why the council has decided to carry on with these sets of traffic lights at that particular intersection. I was asked at I've written and sorry, I'll start again. At the march, after the march, I did organise last week, which some of the councillors turned up to. Thank you for that. I was asked to supply the report that I wrote criticising the traffic design group consultant report, which you guys have used for justification for originally for those traffic lights, which I have sent out, and I'm just wondering if councillors have had a chance to read that. I've sent it out twice, in fact.
Cool. All right.
Somebody's got it?
Yep,
yes, and you've read it?
Yep,
okay. Well, in that, I'm very critical of the traffic design group report written by Grant Smith. There's fundamental errors in it. There's about 20 errors in it. Particularly, I'll give you a couple of examples. One is that they state that roundabouts are 4 to 5 times the cost of traffic lights. Which means that a roundabout in an urban situation would be somewhere in the vicinity of $1.5 to $2 million. It's unbelievable that you could actually spend that amount of money in an urban situation. I did some research on it, and you can actually buy a recycled rubber roundabout for $1,500. So compare that to $1.5 million, just completely out of the ballpark. Installation, I would estimate to be about $4,000 for a roundabout in an intersection. There's plenty of space in all the intersections around town for roundabouts, and particularly we're talking about Norman Smith. There's I think it was 28 metres, I think, worth of space available for a roundabout. So there's no excuse here for not being able to fit a roundabout, and also the council owns 25 metres to the west, so if there was any more land needed. But particularly this is not putting forward the idea of particularly of a roundabout, but the petition is against lights. I'll give you another example. When the power failed in town last year for excuse me, for a day, I took the opportunity to video the lights, or the intersection in town without traffic lights for half an hour, and then I came back the next day and videoed it again for half an hour, and the flow was 30% better without the traffic lights. So the problem you've got in town there is that they stop for 30 seconds every 105 seconds to let the pedestrians across. Now pedestrians can walk across any other intersection in town, or anywhere else in town, without the need for traffic lights. So in my report I quoted 33 different international studies that show that there are a lot of advantages for roundabouts as opposed to traffic lights, being cost, safety, flow, driver acceptance, pollution, visual impact. So just what I'm trying to do here is represent ratepayers who are against the idea of traffic lights in Norman Smith, and presented a lot of information and obviously the signatures to that effect. I note that there hasn't been any research from the council to say yes, ratepayers do want lights. There's been no surveys, no petitions, Survey Monkey, whatever. So just my opportunity now to present the feeling of people in town that they do not want lights at Norman Smith.
Thank you very much, Paul. Any quick questions, Paul? Yeah, Councillor Jollins.
Good afternoon, Paul. Just a quick question from me. When we discussed, oh sorry, I'm just losing my voice, just a second. When we discussed the traffic lights, one of the matters that was brought up was about the safety aspect of the number of school children that need to cross that road in the morning that are coming down Norman Smith to go across to predominantly our colleges. What would be your response to that question about safety and what lights might add to that?
Well, have there been any incidents so far? If there's been no incidents, well, there's no problem. So I don't know the answer to that question, but if there's been any incidents of school kids having any problem crossing the street, and then there are other options as well, in terms of islands in the middle of the roads, maybe a pedestrian crossing mid-street, down towards the control gates, etc. But I just don't see the point of putting in a set of traffic lights which will hold up traffic 24/7 for the sake of school kids crossing for whatever, an hour or so in the morning, an hour in the evening. So it's an expensive,
Councillor Harvey,
expensive option.
Thanks, Paul. Just a point of clarification for those who are here today. You did have a meeting, and I had a meeting with you, and I think several councillors did. And to say that we weren't interested or had any ideas on why we thought lights were necessary is actually not correct. I gave you my opinions, and safety was one of them. It was a very important one. And in fact, I think to question that nothing's happened so far, I think is not a good analogy. So you have your opinion, and you've got opinions from various people, and that's great. I've also had a lot of people in town saying, when are they going in? So we have to make a decision based on everybody, but I just wanted to clarify that we did discuss it, and I did give you my reasons.
Yeah, as I recall, the discussion went along the lines of you didn't think that I was an expert, and I backed that up by saying I had 33 international studies showing that roundabouts were a better idea than lights, and secondly that you talk about safety. Well, in terms of a standard T intersection, you've got 32 collision points and possibilities, and in a roundabout you've got 8. And in some of those studies, in the report that I sent out, there were some intersections there were maybe 5 fatalities per year. They've been reduced down to 0 with a roundabout.
Okay,
So,
any other questions of Paul? Councillor Williamson.
Yeah, worship. Yeah, thank you. I would just, at this stage, I really just want to just give respect to the the ability to present the petition. But I just want to clarify, just picking up on Councillor John's point. I remember we had the decision point, the critical point, whether you agree or whether we agree or not, it was exactly a safety issue. That was what basically tipped my decision anyway, because there was a lot of debate either way. And I also do recall through the consultation submission process, there were people, notwithstanding the limitations of consultation, getting everybody, the 22,000 people in the community to engage in it, which is never going to be possible, unfortunately, but there were people in support of lights, from memory. So I just want to thank you, just for going to the effort of organising the petition, and we respect that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Williamson. Councillor Boddy.
Thank you, once again, Paul. Thank you for your efforts again. It's rather interesting. About, I'd probably say 3 months ago, my fellow councillors will correct me if I'm wrong, we had comments from Councillor Rankin in regards of traffic on Martpa Road. We had comments from Councillor Jolins in regards of Kinloch, and I was commenting on comments that have been made to me from the Nuka area, which I'm from. Basically saying things are starting to work, particularly since that zip sign went in coming down the hill. Now, we've got the question of safety, which I fully endorse. However, today, on this agenda paper, we're looking at putting a pedestrian crossing in Spa Road for the safety of children crossing the road. So, on the anecdotal evidence that I'm receiving, do we now put this thing on hold until our full traffic management plan's in place? That includes a bridge. because we may be taking actions at 485,000 versus the price of a roundabout. So I'd prefer council now to do further due diligence on the whole issue, and maybe, as you suggested, that crossing, because we're going to today debate one on Spa Road specifically for the safety of children crossing. So that's where I'm coming from at the moment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right.
And I would just have to say sorry through the chair that I support Councillor Body on this particular one. I've had a lot of feedback from Acacia Bay and from Kinloch that the issues have reduced significantly since we put those short-term effects in, and I would urge us to take a bigger picture of the final solution. Safety is an issue, I completely agree, I see children cross there, but is that the right solution for that particular issue? And I would really like to see us put this on hold till we fully understand.
Okay. All right, thank you, Councillor. So today we're receiving the petition. There's a recommendation there, and no doubt that will be considered at some stage, and perhaps it will come back. What's the process here?
So, Mr. Chairman, through you, we will be bringing back to you an item to award or to consider awarding the contract for the installation of the lights. You'll remember that we've gone through the process of seeking tender, so that's an opportunity for you at that time to have the discussion about whether you wish to continue or not.
Cool. Okay.
Hopefully at the next council meeting.
Yep.
So just to clarify, there's no planned works at this stage, it still has to come before us?
Not until you approve that budget.
Okay, so there's recommendation to receive this petition. Thank you, Paul, to you and your supporters. Moved by Councillor Body, seconded by Councillor Jollins. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Right, 5.3, licence to occupy fly line at Hipapa Tour, Reeds Farm. We've got a council officer presenting this.
Nathan is there.
Yeah. Okay, do we have a council officer to present the item first?
Nathan.
Yep. Nathan, are you presenting this, or? Oh, okay. So we have the applicants. The applicants here. Okay, right. Okay, cool. All right. Item 5.3. Okay. The floor is yours. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here. And I was reflecting in the back of the room that I can't recall, but I should recall with fondness the last time I sat before you with a German at my side. Of course, reflecting on our dear friend Fritz. Just while Alex sets up the PowerPoint for today's discussion about the flyline opportunity, I'm just going to make a few introductory remarks about the process that brings this project to you today. Alex is then going to step you through a PowerPoint presentation, and you've got hopefully you've got the booklets on your desk to go along with that, and then of course Nathan has prepared the paper for you to then consider in the board pack. In the meeting pack, I should say. So just really to clarify a few points from us. I've been working with Alex on this for about the last 6 months. This opportunity presented itself through our ongoing relationship with New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. And NZT&E have a program to highlight opportunities to add new tourism product into New Zealand, and it's very much about future-proofing us for our current and our future visitors. They did an analysis of 90 opportunities. Two of those opportunities were in the top 10 opportunities, I should say, are in Taupo, and this is one of them. So NZT&E had done their due diligence on Alex and on this opportunity before it came our way, and then working alongside Damien prior to his departure from Destination Great Lake Taupo, we set about trying to find a home for Flyline in Taupo. We looked at 6 or 7 sites. Some of those sites are 100% council land. Some of those were iwi land and a partnership opportunity. Some of those were private. The criteria really for the ideal site for this opportunity, it needed to have some gradient, it needed to have a fall, it needed to have some trees, because as you see the fly line is attached into the trees. It needed to be close to the CBD and ideally located along or near other complementary tourism activities, because what we're trying to do is create a cluster of tourism opportunities rather than have them scattered all across our district. And in an ideal world, the riders on the fly line would be able to enjoy views of the river. I would acknowledge that this project is very much in keeping with the goals for the district that are confirmed through the District Economic Strengthening Strategy. It aligns to our strategy at EGLT, and councillors may recall when I last presented to you, our business plan was very much set about identifying and attracting new tourism operators to our district. So this is us doing our job for you in regard to that. Alex and I have worked really closely with a number of council officers, with Nathan, with Scott Devonport from a consents and regulatory perspective, and Andrew Moores from a parks perspective. I just really wanted to acknowledge that we understand that this is kind of a new idea for you guys to consider, and it's something that we haven't socialised with you prior. We have in a different operator in a different location. Yeah. Quite a different thing. Yeah, quite a different thing to a zip line. So yes, council have previously considered a zip line operation in a different area of Wairakei Tourist Park. This is quite a different product, which Alex will explain in a minute the difference. It's always really hard for us to determine when's the best point in the process to bring these things before you, because until we've done a decent amount of feasibility work and due diligence, we don't actually have anything to present. So we have been undertaking some feasibility work on those potential sites. Like I say, we landed on the Reeds Farm site, and that was universally agreed by the council officers and ourselves, and of course Alex is the investor and the brains behind it as being the most ideal site. Our plan had been, after today, if council were keen to take it further, that we would then undertake consultation with the neighbourhood and the affected parties, and also with iwi. We didn't feel that it was appropriate to consult on something before we knew whether it was even potentially going to go anywhere. Otherwise, we're talking about something that might not ever happen. I would just lastly like to add, before I hand over to Alex, that this project has our full support, and also that of DGLT's from a pure economic development perspective. It's adding an amazing tourism product, unlike anything else in New Zealand. But also there's some real value to add into a quite neglected part of Hipapatua. To say that it was a shambles when we went in there is a bit of an understatement. Yes, we did have to have some operators in there on site because we couldn't even get in there. We found 2 abandoned cars that had been dumped in there. It's not in a nice state, and it's not in a nice state that our local community or our visitors can enjoy. So there's an extra benefit from an opportunity like this, where you're actually going to be using some private developers' funds to add value to a public asset. And to me, as a ratepayer and also as your ED expert, I consider that a double win. So that's all I'd like to say for now. I'll hand over to Alex to step you through the presentation, and then obviously we can answer any questions as we go or at the end.
Cool. Thank you. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Kylie. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear councillors. First I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Alex Schmid. I'm the founder and developer of the Redwoods Tree Walk in Rotorua. And now I'm working on the development of the fly line distribution here in New Zealand, where I'm holding the exclusive rights for. This proposal is for, as Kylie said, for a fly line concept in Taupo at the Hipapatua Reserve. And I think this activity will heighten the visitor's experience of this unique scenic location, as you see on the picture. And at the same time, I think the concept will respect and blend into the natural environment rather than detract or from it in any way. So, the important question, what is a fly line? Fly line is exactly the opposite side of zip line. Fly line is an exciting new development for ecotourism. It's a soft adventure experience, and it makes wave in Europe in a couple of locations. As I'm bringing this innovative product to the New Zealand market for the first time, Taupo will be the only place in the southern hemisphere where a fly line will be installed. The combination of the idea behind fly line is going through the forest and exploring the nature in a silent, calm way. As you see on the picture, Flyline is a banded stainless steel track that winds through the forest, and it needs gravity to ride along. Thanks to its innovative braking system, where the trolley glides along the track, Flyline is absolutely soundless. Who can ride on a Flyline? Flyline, or you sit in a seated sling on a Flyline, and you glide along on a gentle speed between 6 and 10 kilometers per hour. This means it's a slow, enjoyable ride. As I said, completely the opposite side of ziplining, where you rush like a cannonball through the environment. It's made to enjoy the scenery and to see the birds, or to hear the birds, to see the river between the trees, and all these nice things that we found on this reserve land. I think all these things can people enjoy during their flight. Who can go for a Flyline ride? It's a wide range of customers. It starts from children from 6 years on with a weight of 30 kilograms, and up on top is no limit for that. Younger children can go for a tandem ride with their parents, as they're too light for the gravity system. What's our target market? It's mainly, for example, the domestic market, within a reach of 3 hours around Taupo. This is around 2 million people that we maybe can reach. And Flyline offers a structured, safe ride. There are no safety trainings or other highly physical activities necessary. I think Flyline is the new stage of ecotourism by exploring nature in a responsible way. What I'd like to show you is one of the videos of Flyline that I took on my own ride when I visited the Flyline site in Italy. And I would like to ask if we can turn up the volume quite high, please.
Thanks, Shani.
And I would like to that you really listen what it is. There's a huge waterfall next to the Flyline. And the next video is just to see how visitors enjoy the ride and how it looks from a distance. The background noise is the waterfall just next to it. Well, that's the original speed of the experience and how it looks like. What's the technical background for Flyline? It's certified to highest European standards. From the standard perspective, it is a high ropes course, and Flyline took the International Adventure Park Association Award in 2014 for being the innovative solution and excellent design concept. Highlights of Flyline: it's controlled speed, 2 centrifugal brakes provide enough safety, and the speed is limited to a maximum of 12 kilometers per hour. There's no way to make it faster for any more adventure or adrenaline rides. I think this slide is very important as well for where it will be located, or we plan to locate it. The overall entrance and main customer site will be on the overflow car park at Rates Farm. This will be the only entrance for the whole activity. The Flyline itself, as you see on the green line, will be around 450 meters long and winds through the forest away from the road. The approximately ride time will be between 3 and 4 minutes. We plan to get to the fly line. There is the red footpath we will install, and also with this nice lookout down to the river, where we can tell some story about the historical sites that happened in the past here. This opportunity gives us also control, as Kylie mentioned, for pest control and for the weed control as well, as we think quite a nice replanting would be a good opportunity as well to make this abandoned site, bring it back to life. For us, it's interesting also to install a nice small coffee where we can host our guests after the fly line ride to enjoy the scenery of the river. Yep, oh sorry. Yep. There will be the shuttle system need to be transported back to the start point, and this is the yellow line. It's a straight transport system where only the shuttle devices gets automatically transported back. The walking tracks we think to install, it's just a normal metal walking track. We will install some information boards around it, explain a bit more of the flora, fauna, of the renaturation program we plan to do, and also for pest control. To make the walk-up more enjoyable, we think to install some educational and entertaining areas for children, like a slide or climbing obstacles or something like that. The start platform as itself will be away from the road. So it will be around 15 meters inside of the forest area, not higher than the trees, around 10 to maximum of 15 meters in height. I took the sample from the tree walk. I think it will look like that a little bit. And so it will not deattract and blend into the forest. I think the access way will be with the staircase that's installed in it. The landing platform at the end of the flyline ride will be a small wooden platform in the size of 3 to 6 meters around, where the guests are landing, removing the harness, and can walk from there back to the coffee area, to the deck. And we think to install a customized 20-foot container as a coffee to make a nice, suitable site. And we think also, hopefully, to encourage people from the campground to come along and go for a coffee in the morning or something like that. So the coffee is a very important part for our overall business plan to think about. What's the benefits for the product as itself? I think it's encouraging people to learn about the culture, history, and nature along the river. It's quite a significant site. Develop a new ecotourism attraction with minimal environmental impact to lead Taupo to a superb example for sustainable tourism. As I said before, as I'm holding the exclusive rights, I'm controlling where a flyline will be installed. So Taupo could be an installation without any others in a wider distance. It's quite a great opportunity. Protecting natural fauna, allowing controlled access to the area as well. As Kylie said, we found a couple of cars, a lot of rubbish, so we will look after the reserve. What's the benefit for the community? We think to employ 15, 20 full or part-time staff. Education, including children and school groups, if you just think for the lookout and replanting program, we think. And overall, more income through tourism, as I think flyline will increase the overall length people would like to stay in the area. Benefits for the visitors, increasing number of people looking for temporary return, and especially for a short thing without a big planning phase. So you arrive on the site, you get your ticket, you walk up to the start point, get in the harness, and have a couple of nice minutes for a ride. You don't need to have a big safety training with helmets and other stuff like this and carabiners, nothing like that. And it makes the forest accessible for people with disabilities as well. So this could be the only opportunities for someone in a wheelchair to explore the forest in a really unique way. I think it's also a nice thing for children, for school groups to get moving, to see what's a benefit to run around. Benefits to the landowner, to the council, income from license fee, economical development to the region, and increase the visitation utilization of the proposed location. In summary, I think Rates Farm is a great place for a fly line. We have everything we need. There's no more roads that need to be built, car parks or something like that. It's close to existing activities. And the uniqueness of the product is a great plus for the region and for the IDS itself. As I think I can say I'm an experienced operator. This will be my third business that I'm setting up from scratch with a blank space of forest. So I know how to deal with unexpected things. And I think the tree walk is quite a nice example for doing things right. So hopefully I can convince you with that.
Great. Thank you, Alex.
Thank
Thank you very much. All right, any questions of Alex? Councillor Body.
The map, sorry, the map that you've got up there and the map that's in our agenda, two different maps. The reason I ask that is that doesn't seem to be built up. And I'm just wondering, where does it finish in the Reed Farm? Is it the area below the bath, the toilet facilities, which is locked off at 6 o'clock at night? Because you've got pigs coming down to that area.
Yeah, I can help answer that, and I might have to hand over to Nathan, but that's the overflow upper reserve car park that you can see at the top, and you can just see below that there's another car park entrance. The main car park entrance is the one at the top of that image, which is the one that's closed at 6 o'clock and also at certain times of the year. The overflow car park is just that, it's simply used as an overflow at busy times when the park's been utilised.
So that's the area where it's got the cup.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
That's why I say it's old, because it doesn't look like them. Let's answer that question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other questions, Alex? Kylie? Councillor Truman? Sorry.
No.
Hi, just a question, in regards to the accessibility of it. So you're saying people with disabilities would be able to access it. Just from your photos, it looks like everywhere is steps. So are you planning to have like a lift, or are you planning to have ramps, or how would that happen?
Yeah, for people in wheelchairs, there are special kind of chairs available where you can lift up people up on stairs. So we will have one of these to bring them up on the platform. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hi Alex, I'm Roseanne. I'm asking these questions because I just want to understand your approach to business and your business philosophy. So Flyline, what's your company's mission? What are your values? What do you expound? You talk about ecotourism, but I'd like to understand a little bit about your overriding philosophies in this space. And the second question is, when you developed sites like the Redwoods, which I have walked through recently, which were fantastic. I just want to understand what sort of consultation process you had to go through, what sort of things you needed to talk about there with people in that community.
Yep, thank you. Yep, to your first question, my link is I'm hooked to trees. So for example, when I started with the tree walk, it was 10 years ago, I went through the forest, saw these trees and thought there must be something installed, and it was the main idea. So I like to develop and to get something up and running. And if it's linked to nature and I can bring value to the nature and people can have access on a simple way, that's what I like to do. And for the tree walk and Flyline is designed as a high rope course. So that's the whole process we need to go through. There's a standard process for it.
Your Worship.
Cool. Councillor Rankin next. And then, sorry.
I think it's an absolutely brilliant proposition. It's the kind of thing we've been waiting for a very long time, but the hours of operation are going to be really vital in terms of making this work for the people around and about. What are you proposing in terms of that? Or do you have a proposal for times?
Not really at this stage. Yeah, it's definitely...
You're open to what
open.
That might be?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Williamson?
Your Worship. Thank you, Alex. My question's a bit simpler. Just looking at the grade, the elevation loss, 55 metres. The bulk of that's amongst the trees, right amongst the trees. So I'm not just listening to the Mr. Finlay earlier regarding one of the potential issues is the amenity value is the noise, potential noise. So that would potentially possibly mitigate a lot through that section there anyway.
So, just that I understand your question right, you're concerned about the noise that people create? Yep. Yep.
Sorry, from the neighbouring properties off Clearwater Lane.
Yeah, I guess I totally understand the question and the concern, and that was why we were hoping by showing you those couple of videos that you'd get a sense of not only that it's fundamentally different to a zipline operation, which is all about speed and fear and screaming and yelling, and it's actually all about getting out and being absorbed in the peace and the quiet of the nature. The actual device, as you heard at full volume, barely makes a whisper, and the indications as to the site map. And that was the work that that Alex and Andrew from the Council Parks Department have been doing on that site, is to try and determine how they could site it as far away from the road and the neighbourhood as possible to respect the neighbourhood. And why, again, as I mentioned in my introduction, we had planned for this next stage, if we got the okay from you today, to talk to those neighbours and affected parties to make sure that we are cognisant of their concerns. And I think, just to circle back to Councillor Rankin's conversation, the hours of operation would be part of that conversation.
Councillor Boddy.
Okay. Yep.
Councillor Hickley.
Oh, thank you. Whilst I know this may take time to build up, but you're estimating 45,000 visitors per year, ultimately, should we say, correct? I'm really concerned about the car parking facilities, because I'm pretty familiar with Spartan Park with my background. That top area is very limited to car parking spaces. So you're expecting to use the lower part, which is generally for picnicking, I believe, and day parking. But that's not capable of accepting all these numbers of people. So can you give me some comfort that you've looked at those things to accommodate ultimately where we're going in the future?
Yes and no, Councillor. I think it's fair to say that we've had some really positive and lengthy conversations with Scott, in particular around resource and building consent, because this project would have to come back through those regulatory frameworks, and part of the consideration then would be some detailed design around parking, accessibility, hours of operation, where overflow parking might exist, if there is requirement for bus parking, for example, coach parking, etc. We haven't done the detailed design work on that at this stage, because, again, as I said, it was trying to get the timing right as to when to bring it to you. We didn't want to go too far down the track that you felt like we were predetermining an outcome from today's conversation. So I think it's very fair to say that it's very much on the work plan, and we acknowledge that it needs to be addressed. There is a desire, and when we talked around the team about it, there's a real opportunity to potentially access some central government funding to bring some of that work to life with regards to improving the amenity, utilising, for example, the Tourism Infrastructure Fund, which is designed just for this purpose, or potentially the new International Visitor Levy Fund, which is also designed for this purpose. So there's an opportunity that potentially we can JV to develop that parking area and that rest area, and which is basically what it is now. Well, I don't quite want to know what gets on in that area at the moment at night time, to be honest, to improve the amenity. But I completely take your point.
Yeah, because even Oak Falls Road is not a good access road
it's not.
to reach to the park itself.
Yeah. And I understand, and again, I'm speaking in advance of the council officer who knows this information far better than I do, so I apologise if I get this wrong, but I do understand that there are plans in the long-term plan to improve a number of those infrastructure assets in that area. So there's an opportunity, like I say, to potentially JV, and that might enable us to bring those forward.
Just through the chair, I've got a couple of questions for Nathan, but can I just ask, when we did the district, or you guys did the district economic strengthening strategy, is the Hipapa Toa reserve in scope of the Wairaki Tourist Park master plan?
So and Jess might be able to answer this better than I, because again it's her document as a council officer and I'm not, but the opportunities to extend tourism offerings is in the strategy, and Wairaki as a wider area, not just the geographical existing tourist park, is included.
Councillor Williamson.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I was just picking up, on Councillor Hickling's point about obviously Hooker Falls Road, notwithstanding the speed limit's been reduced. It probably is concern to some of the neighbouring residents anyway with the noise, but probably I'm just whether it's a great analogy with the Hooker Falls car park. How many visitors go through there every year? So a lot more than 45,000. So I wouldn't like to second guess to say that even it's the ideal situation for Hooker Falls, but yeah, just give some perspective, context.
And could I just just a comment around 45,000 sounds like an awfully big number, and I appreciate that, but that's sort of predicated on 50 people a day in the quiet time and 150 people a day on a busy day. So whilst it sounds like a very large number, when you actually break it down across a trading year, there will obviously be peaks and seasonal variations, but it's not anything like the volume that already is travelling down that road heading to Hooker Falls.
Councillor Body.
Along the same lines, it's the noise factor. Kylie, you mentioned that how did you word it, that you didn't do the due diligence in regards of asking. You've got to this stage now, and I'm just a little bit concerned. You've mentioned that it's close to the CBD, but it's also close to a residential area. Now, on the screen we just saw, you had one person going down the line. On the document you gave us, there's two almost side by side. That would happen, would it not?
Depends. This is a tandem ride. This means children goes with an adult down on the right. It's not the usual thing.
Okay. Except when you get out in that environment, because I've had young children and done it over in the fun parks in Australia, they yahoo, they shout. You have it said in your document, 200 people a day. They're parking cars, they're walking on the footpath, they're talking to each other. That all goes up. And I'm also very concerned about the damage that's been done so far without approval from this council, but we'll debate that a little bit later. So I'm just going to ask Kylie, did you look at the management plan for Reed's Farm to see whether it allowed this sort of activity to take place?
That's probably a question better asked of Nathan, but yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
It's in the agenda.
So we'll find out get Nathan's answer. Thank you.
Look, I just had one last quick question because I realise we've got a lot to get through. Could you just help me understand your rationale for why you need to seek approval from us first for a licence before you go through the statutory steps that you're going to need to, which are going to answer a lot of these questions that the councillors are putting to you now. Can you just explain why?
We're purely acting on officer advice, councillor. We were told that this was the appropriate way in which to step this kind of development through the council mechanism. So I'm following the lead. Yes, I am. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Alex.
We'll hand over to Nathan.
Nathan.
Do you want us to stay here in case there's questions?
What's that? No, I think all right. Thanks very much. Afternoon, Nathan.
Good afternoon. I think Alex and Kylie have explained really well what the proposal is. I'd like to think we can take the report as read. I'm sure there's a lot of questions that you'd rather answer than have me explain the report, so sure, please.
Thanks very much, Nathan. Okay. Questions? Councillor Park.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nathan, just in regards to structures like the tower and whatnot, would any of it need, well, obviously it'll go through the resource consent, but is there anything in there that may trigger possible notified?
Would depend on the height of the structure. I believe one of our early discussions with Scott, he didn't think that it would trigger a resource consent, but it all depends on the ultimate height of the structure. I can't remember what the exact height limit is.
Okay, just two more. On figure 4 on page 81 of our agenda, and it has the points B and A, or A and B.
Yes.
Is that the proposed zip line fly line.
No, that's an extract from the reserve management plan, so that you can see what the
That's right. Because I was
proposed development is. So the area is to the left of area B.
No, that's fine. And the last one was under the Reserves Act, you can offer a lease of up to 33 years. Why have the officers settled on 10, considering recommending 10, considering the significant investment that would need to be made?
I think in the past there used to be 33 years offered quite often, and you do tend to find as things move on that you are hamstrung a little bit by the length of those terms, and the world is moving faster and faster and development is faster, so we felt 10 years was a good compromise between the level of investment and giving some security but also enabling us to enact parts of the management plan when we're ready to. For example, in the southern end of the reserve there's long-term regeneration is one of our big goals, which Alex has said that they're willing to support. But yeah, 33 years is an awful long time in the life of a park when you're looking at accommodating developing uses and trends and societal trends.
Right, so there would be no right of renewal attached to that? It's just 10 years, that's it?
The risk of... so a right of renewal is a bit of a have, really, because the right of renewal is up to, in every case, is up to the applicant. Council has no right to refuse a right of renewal, so you might as well just offer them a 20-year lease as opposed to a 10 plus 10.
Great. Councillor Body.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed in the agenda, Nathan, that you mentioned that it's under the Reserve Act 77 54D. That actually states, and I'm going to be corrected by you no doubt, it actually states, provided that trade, business or occupations must be necessary to enable the public to obtain the benefit and enjoyment of the reserve or the convenience of persons using the reserve.
Yes.
So do you really believe that if I want to go for a picnic down there, that's not going to interfere with my enjoyment of that reserve?
I don't believe it would, and again, I want to draw a line between the advocacy role of DGLT and my role as an officer just assessing the suitability on the site. So I'm just giving you the area of if it works and if the likelihood of success in this park. That said, in that southern area nobody uses it anyway. If you were to install an activity such as this, then I believe it would definitely encourage people to make use of a reserve in an area which is otherwise not used at all, and in fact, while I don't believe it is as much of a wasteland because I have a different view on parks, it certainly does need some improving and some love, and it would be great to have more people visit that area of the park. A measure of success of our parks, I believe, is the number of people that use them, and if we can get them to use them in a responsible and suitable manner, then I think that's a success.
Well, that's a very good advocacy for what you want to have done, and I'm here to represent, to do due diligence as part of my job. So I could continue on that particular clause, and someone's going to help me out on this. It talks about, provided that the prior consent of the Minister shall not be required to lease a licence under this paragraph where the trade, business, occupation is carried out on the reserve only temporarily and the terms of the lease or licence does not exceed 6 consecutive days. Does that apply?
No. The delegations were revised about 4 or 5 years ago to enable council to make those decisions without needing recourse to go to the Minister. The purpose of that is if there's a commercial activity of less than a week, then you can approve that without needing to go into, I think it's section 119, 120, which is the public consultation section, which is a lot of what we do on Tongariro Domain. Activities of less than a week we can approve without needing to do public consultation, as well as it being in the reserve management plan.
Could I then just finally, before I continue, find out which clauses under the Act do you use to suggest that this is an activity that could take place?
Section 54.
Section 54, which is just what I read out?
Yes.
Well,
that is the main one. As a recreation reserve, permitted leases and licences on a recreation reserve.
Correct. Now, if we look at the Reeds Reserves Management Plan, there are things that I believe contradict that in regards of community and cultural values. It states here that it is highly valued by the local community as a place to use for a range of recreational pursuits, for outdoor nature-based activities. The reserve provides a unique opportunity for the natural outdoor experience adjacent to the Taupo urban area, and in particular it offers easy access to the river, a quiet area close to town suitable for a range of day use and overnight camping, picnicking, relaxing, walking, cycling. It talks about, or any person to damage to the reserve, that's another factor. That's already there. It then goes on to actually state all applicants must demonstrate to the District Council that the activity will not have an adverse effect on the reserve as its primary purpose, and that appropriate remediation process are agreed to prior to restore any damage to the reserve. The District Council will only grant application for commercial activities where evidence has been supplied demonstrating that the activity will not adversely affect the values of the reserve for its primary purpose, which is recreation. Yep. So I believe, and I can continue on and on and on, we talk about the values of the reserve. There's a whole host of things that to me, and its close proximity to a residential area, that this is not the right place for this activity, but I'm fully supportive of the activity taking place somewhere.
Yeah, I guess it depends on your interpretation of what a nature-based outdoor activity is. I guess my view on it is that this is largely a nature-based outdoor activity, which fits in with the recreation values of that reserve. In terms of damage to the reserve, the southern area of the reserve is just a bunch of hoary old pines which really need to come out at some stage. And they need to be, and the goal of that area of the reserve is natural regeneration and revegetation, and if we can get in there and start doing that a bit sooner with the help of this activity, I think that would probably be a good thing. But again, it's part of the process is that we seek approval of council to go out for public consultation, and we see what the public have to say on this, and then you get another bite at the cherry in another month. So that's the primary goal of this today, is to enable us to go out to see what the public think of this activity.
Through the chair, Nathan.
Collins.
Thank you. The resolution asks us to approve a lease subject to successful consultation. What do you define as successful consultation?
Well, that would be in a month if you take into account all of the submissions that you receive and you believe that this activity is still suitable in terms of the applicant and in terms of the recommendation, which is to approve the lease. A successful consultation would be to reinforce the approval of that lease.
I guess what I need some help with and what I'm struggling with here is I don't feel that we've got adequate information to make a decision right at this very point. You talk about resource consents. Resource consents for what? With which territorial authority? How does that all work? I think it's a fantastic idea. I'm quite excited to hear about it. And I've seen Alex's work before, and it is sterling. But I do wonder if, to help us get out of this hole, we talk about whether we would agree in principle and then start the process, because I don't have any surety that we have the correct resource consents. We know what the discussion is. And when you talk about consultation, to actually be marking trees now and approving leases before you've even gone through your statutory requirements, I think is dangerous territory.
It's probably through Mr. Chairman. So it's very likely that resource consent won't be needed for this activity. That we haven't got to that point yet because we don't know what the activity looks like. But we won't know what that activity looks like until it's gone through its submission process and the applicant has actually put something forward, knowing exactly what the hours of use were, what sort of other conditions that he ends up negotiating with whatever successful, whatever parties that there are out there. I guess so it's definitely the right way of doing it in terms of the lease first, and then the building consents and resource consents come in secondly, would be my advice to you. The bit that I can see that you're struggling with, and I agree with, is the fact that you are approving a lease in principle to then go out and consult with. Unfortunately, that's the way that the Reserves Act is set up, whereas I think in a great position would go out and just consult on the activity. The Reserves Act is set up that we go out and we consult on the proposal to grant. So even Ruapehu Ski Field, when that went out, DOC went out with a proposal to grant and then consult on that. So unfortunately the legislation is set up that way that it boxes you into that corner. This is not unique. This is something that all around the country councils and DOC get into this concern, because it does mean that you have to be be issuing or offering a licence to then go and consult on, but the legislation is what the legislation is.
How does this differ from Kinloch, where we had to go out with extensive consultation before we granted a lease?
Which lease are you referring to, Councillor? You decided that we didn't need to go out for consultation on that, and the opinion was because it was approved. No, because it was approved in the Reserve Management Plan, which is a publicly consulted document, you weren't required to go out and consult at all, and all of that consultation was carried out independently by the residents and applicants prior to council even becoming involved. I'd just like to reinforce what the Chief Executive has said. The way the legislation is written, you have to approve a lease before you can consult on it. You have to approve it in principle before you can consult on that decision that you've made. Ideally, I would have preferred to have the presentation made and then to gauge the feeling of whether it's successful, and then come back to the next meeting with this recommendation once we'd figured out some of these details which you are talking about. But we have been asked to accelerate the process due to trying to, if it is something that you would like to see happen, and to meet some of the tourism deadlines in the high seasons.
Councillor Hickling.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nathan, can you please assure all the councillors that when you're talking about consultation, we will contact all the people concerned, the adjoining property owners across Hooker Falls Road, and make sure that they've all got the opportunity to put a submission in for or against, please.
Oh, absolutely. We will be doing much more than our minimum basic requirements due to the high level of interest and potential perceived impacts of this, and the neighbours obviously of all our reserves have a huge interest, and we would be remiss if we didn't approach them and let them know of this personally.
Okay, thank you.
So the intention would be to consult with iwi as well, because there's obviously a significant site as indicated on the map. Have you thought through that process?
As part of the public consultation process, everybody gets the opportunity to submit, and again they will be the same as a neighbour. We will go out individually to them and identify to them that this is a proposal and ask them to make a submission on that proposal as well, due to the, their importance to the site just as much as the neighbouring residents.
Further on the iwi conversation, the current status of the land, so there's no claims or anything like that on it? It's clear reserve?
I don't believe so. When we did the reserve management plan, we went through an awful lot of discussion. There was an awful lot of misinformation about how the land came into council's ownership and administration, and we did clear all of that up at the time, I believe, and it is clearly council reserve land owned and administered by council without any encumbrances apart from it being a reserve.
Councillor Johnson bringing up the business of the significance of the decision in regards of a Maori consultation, which I thought may have been brought to us today, that there's a feeling one way or the other. But just to clarify, the district plan, it talks about this area as an amenity landscape area due to its high scenic and amenity value and its natural setting. Does that change?
That's an area which is outside my expertise. You would have to ask the planning team about that one.
That's the reason I asked it.
Hello.
Right, Councillor Harvey.
Can we move this along?
Yeah, I think probably the questions are coming, and rightfully so, because of this has just sort of appeared in the last few days. So certainly I have been convalescing, of course, but I haven't been privy to any information prior to this. So I've let the councillors ask good questions, and that's why I've indulged the time frame. So, sorry, Councillor Harvey.
It was just really just to, I mean, I think we all agree it's got some great positive attributes, and we acknowledge the concerns of those in the area who've been here today. We fully understand that, but we also have to look at the upside as well, and let's just find out what the community wants, rather than get bogged down too much on how it couldn't work. Let's see how it could if it turns out that that's what everyone wants.
Mr. Murray.
I'd just like to point out that you're able to do more than just meet your minimum obligations of public consultation. If you want to extend that period, if you would like us to carry out a certain process in order to give you some security and certainty of the information, then you're well within your rights to ask us to do that. I'm just giving you the legislative minimum requirements, which is 1 month consultation. We're obviously more than happy and welcome to do more than that if you choose to.
Okay, all right. So there's a suggested recommendation there. Councillor Hickling?
Well, I was just going to question whether we've got this recommendation worded correctly, Your Worship, that was all. Whether we can approve in principle
In principle.
license, and whether we need to say it's a 10-year license. I don't, you know, this is, I'd like to at least try and approve in principle a license to occupy, but I don't know whether I'd like to agree with a 10 or 20-year license at this stage.
Yeah. Look,
I just need some clarification on the suggested.
Okay, we'll go straight to the clarification there. Is it possible, Ella? Nice to see you. Ella's the corporate lawyer. Is it okay to approve a license in principle?
Yes, I just drafted up some alternative wording for your resolution. I'll just read that out loud.
Yep.
So, pursuant to Section 54D of the Reserves Act, Council agrees in principle to grant a 10-year licence to occupy to Full Nature New Zealand Limited for the site of the southern end of Hipapatua Reserve / Reeds Farm, subject to the outcome of public consultation to be carried out in accordance with the Reserves Act.
So just regarding the public consultation, if we added the words full, that means everyone in New Zealand, does it?
So there'll be the process in the Reserves Act requires you to put a notice in the newspaper,
right.
And we'll also do other methods that our comms team consider appropriate.
Okay, so just public consultation will be enough there. You're happy with that? Yeah.
Can we just see that particular suggested resolution because it's different to the one, please?
Councillor Jollins?
Look, I'd be more comfortable myself if we could put in principle. Do we also need to put subject to the relevant resource consents, or is that one step too far at this stage?
No, because we don't know.
Come out of the public consultation.
And just one more comment from me. You may want to give yourself a bit more time for consultation, because particularly if you're talking to iwi, you may need a bit more time to find the right people.
Well, if you can't, can you perhaps read it out again?
Yeah, so just go on the screen. The licence terms will require resource consent, so the licence will be subject to any resource consents required.
So we've got
So the time frame of the public consultation is normally statutory a month, but I think what the suggestion here is possibly make it 2 months.
Okay.
Is that happy? Because the applicant obviously needs to know, where things are going. So,
yep. There was a cultural impact assessment done by Leaf regarding Papatua Reserve. That may be quite
handy. Obviously, there's one site been identified as per the map there. Yeah.
I'm happy with that suggested new resolution, Your Worship, and I'm prepared to move.
And I'm happy to second that. Just before it's put.
Are you putting the time frame in there? Sorry, for the public consultation.
Extended consultation or full consultation.
Extended. Does that mean? Is that making it 2 months? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Sorry.
Could I just ask the legal interpretation of in principle? What's that actually mean in law? I mean, in principle, it could be.
It's not in final, so you're indicating. Yeah. You're not signing yourself up to anything. You after you receive submissions and objections, you can decide not to grant. You're not bound to grant a licence.
It's like conditional or unconditional. It's conditional. Yeah, principle.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did we have a mover? Sorry.
Moved it.
Oh, moved by Councillor Kling, seconded by Councillor Dollins. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. As against, carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'd just like to say welcome back from your convalescence. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Cool. All right. Okay, 5.4. Right. It'll be straightforward. Tender contract. Quality improvement device. Stormwater. Mr. Brent Aiken. Morning, Brent. Afternoon, I should say. Brent, sorry.
Hello. Good afternoon, councillors, and great to see you back in the chair, Mayor David.
Thank you very much.
Kanekaneka Reserve is the main outlet point from the central CBD in Turangi. The stormwater quality improvement device is the second in the treatment train. We've got a bunch of enviropods, first of all picking up litter. This is the second device to be able to improve stormwater disposal into that receiving environment. We've only had one tender come back, but it is with the previous successful tender of the last two jobs we've done. Unfortunately, I'm asking for a little bit extra money due to the fact that we're digging a very large hole in River Rock, which will mean dewatering and moving away from pile-driven excavation to a different application. We've been able to save some money in that process, but unfortunately the tender's come in for a little bit more than what we had in the budget. So I'm here today asking for, firstly, for some more money, and secondly to approve that contract to install that device.
Okay, any questions of Brent? I know there'll be one from the right. Councillor Body.
Thank you, Brent. I just want to raise something that I've raised in the past. We had an initial costing for this project, but it's gone up. Wasn't due process done to start to find the rock or whatever means there's additional finances?
That is pretty much the outcome. We did some additional board testing after we got the first number back, which enabled us to save quite a bit of money out of the excavation process. But maybe there was an opportunity for us to do the excavation work and have a different number into that process. But it is what it is, unfortunately.
Could it go further than that then and say that in the long-term plan it was 133?
Yep.
And then you're requiring another 108?
Yep. No, it's actually 143, I think it was, which spent a little bit of money on design. You'll see that in the agenda item. It doesn't talk about design. I think the number's at 143, 42.
Well, where I'm having trouble is that we had 333 in our long-term plan budget. The recommendation states a sum of 249.
Yep. But
then it also states somewhere up here there's a shortfall of 108.
Yep. We did roll some money over from the last development of the last device, so we had a bit of extra cash in the bucket.
But 333 and 108 come to 141, not 149 or 249. That's right. The numbers don't gel.
Yeah, like I say, I think we had some money in the annual plan which we rolled, or a long-term plan that we rolled through to make up the deficit.
We underspent on the last one.
Yeah.
Which we then carried that over.
Right. Exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
Your worship. Sorry.
All right. Any other questions of Brent? Okay, suggested recommendation there. 1 and 2. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Williamson, seconded by Councillor Jollins. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. 5.5. Tender contract. Thanks. Thank you, Brent. Tom. Oh, sorry, Michael.
Yeah, sorry, Tom's not with us today, so I've stepped in to fill the void. So
yeah. Okay.
Here we go.
Cool. Thank you, Michael.
Yep. So I take the paper as read. It's regarding part of the routine renewals of water and wastewater pipes that we do each year, and this is quite a big contract combining some water and wastewater elements into one contract, focusing in Turangi and Takanu area. And the Takanu rising main in particular is one that you'll be aware has failed quite a few times over the last few years, and we've had issues with overflows and spills from that broken main. And so this is the wastewater portion of that project is focusing on replacing that section that's repeatedly failed. So any questions?
Questions? The pricing received in Councillor Park.
I'm just pleading ignorance in this case, but with the the committee that Councillor Williamson co-chairs regarding the wastewater project. Does this have anything to do with this one? I'm just wondering.
No.
So there's no cost efficiencies or anything to be gained?
This is a like-for-like replacement of
Okay.
pipes in the ground. That's a process to do with wastewater disposal from
Okay,
the
thank you.
treatment plant.
Cool. All right. No too many councillors here, so we have a mover. Councillor Park. Seconded by Councillor Truman. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Thanks, Mike. Thank you very much. 5.6, New Public Road, Whariwaka East. Louise. Oh, Heather, sorry. Louise was here. Hi, Heather. Oh, okay. Hi, Heather, how are you? Good. All right, Whariwaka East.
The next name for the next road for the Whariwaka East subdivision being Maru Terrace. It's been through the consultation process, been no objections raised, and so we'd like to put that forward.
Cool.
I'd move, Mr. Chairman.
Easy to pronounce. That's good. All right. So moved by Councillor Body, seconded by Councillor Park. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Thanks, Heather. 5.7. Pedestrian crossing options for Spa Road. Claire and Dennis. Good afternoon, Dennis and Claire.
Afternoon, Worship and councillors. This agenda item is in response to a petition that we received last month, I think, from Jill
Richardson. Yep, we can hear. Keep going.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And it was in request to look at or consider some pedestrian crossing facilities within the lower Spa Road. So what we've done is broken Spa Road, that lower section, into two sections. The first section is between Spa Road, Tongariro Roundabout and Nukahau, and the second section was from Nukahau to Oranui and Ruapehu Street.
That must have been 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning. That is dead.
It was 9 o'clock on a Monday morning.
Jeez.
Relatively recently been flowed.
Is it? Well, sorry, Claire, I interrupted.
That's all right. It was actually 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
So
5 o'clock. What a load of crap. Yeah, sorry.
So what we did was break it into the two sections and then identify where pedestrians generally cross along that street, those two sections. The main one is crossing Tongariro Street to Countdown, and currently we've got that central refuge island in the middle there, which is not a zebra crossing, it's just a courtesy crossing. And then in the second section, it was pretty much people crossing in between Gascoigne and Ruapehu Street to access the shops across the road there.
So where that little inlet is you're talking about?
In the attachments, there's two blue boxes that we've
I see. Yeah.
Basically identified where we can potentially, well, that's potentially where we could look at crossing facilities. We've considered signalised crossings, but we've discounted those at this stage until the transport strategy is completed. And we've also discounted zebra crossings at this location, mainly because of the multi-lane road. NZTA don't recommend installing zebra crossings on a multi-lane situation because you've got that right-hand traffic lane or the curb. Somebody stops for a pedestrian and they get hit in the right-hand lane, moving traffic.
That's not multi-lane there though, is it?
Yes, where those double arrows are.
Oh, okay,
and
you
the
can get right
yep.
there, okay.
Yep.
Not us.
So we've moved away from the zebra crossing. We can put a zebra crossing in, but we'd have to take one of the traffic lanes out, which would then delay. Yep. So in the second section, we've looked at basically a mid-block refuge island, sort of basically where that black car is and underneath Spa Road.
So books.
A refuge island, so a
that-
mid-block, so pretty much like we're doing out on Lake Terrace.
So it's not a
So it's not a-
it's a place that you walk across to and then stay in the
But because it's single lane, because it's double lane. But if you put it, yes, it is. What they're saying is the lines that are coming across. That's double lane.
Can I just clarify the reason that we're not considering a zebra crossing at that location at this stage is that we haven't done any pedestrian counts. We require at least 50 pedestrians per hour over a 3-hour period, and I don't think we're going to potentially get that.
Councillor Body?
Doors off, please. Shit, we need let's have a new building, some technology. I never said that. What I talked to Mrs. Richardson yesterday. She's on her way back from Palmerston, and the problem she said with getting that 50 count is because the road is so dangerous, no one walks across it, so it would be extremely difficult.
Through the chair, I think that's why we'd like to consider a mid-block crossing first, which would then encourage people to cross there, which will then give us potentially the numbers to do something in the future. But it's all going to come back to the transport strategy and what comes out of that too.
Claire, if you put a mid-block section in there, that would eliminate that second lane, wouldn't it? Because you wouldn't be able to get traffic past it.
Yeah, because a lot of people cruise down there.
Yeah. So it all depends where you put it, of course. You know, if you put it to the eastern end, yeah, a bit more, whatever. Then cars could duck into the right after they've passed it. But yeah, it eliminates. You know, it's a busy road. So.
Your Worship.
Yes, Councillor Williamson.
Have you finished? Sorry, you finished?
Yeah.
It's going to be a very. My apologies.
No.
There's a probably a very logical explanation with regard to, like, obviously to do with pedestrian counts, etc. Like one at the college, there's a crossing up there. There's obviously peak times for the college students crossing. Is it to do more with the traffic movements, or as well, or the traffic volume of people crossing? What, as opposed as to what the justification of putting a crossing down further down where we're proposing?
Yeah, through the chair, Your Worship, one of the primary considerations when you're looking at pedestrian crossings and this magic number of 50 is if you have few pedestrians using a pedestrian crossing, motorists are driving through and don't see pedestrians. A pedestrian crossing to a pedestrian gives them some comfort and protection that, hey, I've got a pedestrian crossing, I can walk out in front of a car. If motorists driving up and down the road don't see too many, someone's going to step out in front of a pedestrian, onto a pedestrian crossing in front of a car. There was a pedestrian crossing at the bottom end of Spa Road, and there was a fatality there, and that pedestrian crossing's been removed. We've also recently had a fatality up at the pedestrian crossing on Rifle Range Road as well. That's one of the challenges, and that's why you really need that critical mass of regular use of pedestrians to create the environment where there's lots of pedestrians crossing the road. A pedestrian refuge will enable people then to do the crossing in two legs, so they get to the middle and then they can get to the other side. That encourages pedestrians to use the road, and as they use it more, then you build the counts up to help justify the pedestrian crossing.
Dennis, what's the story? There was one there before, and we got a submission from the shop owners to get it taken down? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct, Your Worship. A number of years ago, the owner of that block of shops wanted to encourage pedestrians across to the shops, and he was going to fund a pedestrian refuge. We left him to undertake the consultation with his tenants. We started building it. He was going to fund it. Some of the tenants didn't like what was happening because they were going to lose parking, and so the job was stopped and we removed what we'd put in.
It was over the parking, that's right, yeah.
You will lose about 5 or 6 car parks.
Oh, really?
And
yeah.
in the morning, that Paitiki shops, that area, there's humming with people parking to get their food, and school kids are in and out of there, going up the road.
It's not Paitiki. Yes. Yeah.
Not Paitiki, yeah. Paitiki, yeah. Pie shop.
Pie shops, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm doing it. Through the chair, you would need to lose those car spaces to get the visibility of people, because they'd be walking out between parked cars. So we'd need to remove that to increase the visibility of the pedestrians waiting to cross there.
I suspect you're going to get the same issues again then. Yeah. So we need to consult. Has there been any, dare I say, consultation? With
Not at this.
No.
Not at this stage.
Okay. So. Petition. There's less parks here.
So if you just look at up on the screen here, and I'll just talk you through it. So what we were looking at is just in this block here, there's a service lane there. You've got an intersection there with a right turn pocket there. You've got a right turn pocket there. You've got parking there. You've got parking there. You've got an intersection there.
Underpass.
You've got vehicle entrances through here.
Yeah.
The space to put in refuges is quite tight along that section of Spa Road, and as soon as you start getting up here, you're getting away from where people want to cross the road.
It's a long way to get pie. So what are you looking for today? Sorry, I haven't read your suggestion. Investigate. So investigate means talk to those shop owners?
Yes.
Yeah.
Come up with a concept design, go and talk to people.
Yeah.
See what they think. We haven't had time since the last meeting when the petition was delivered to go through that part of the process.
Yep.
So just to clarify, Dennis, if we were of a mind to approve this item today, it would still need to come back to us because it would be unbudgeted expenditure?
We would be able to incorporate it within our minor improvement budget, but we would come back to you because of the nature of the consultation.
Cool. Councillor Harvey?
Yes, once again, my frustration levels are on overdrive, because all we want to do is get people across the road safely, which is the idea of the petition, which we all thought was probably very valid. Why can't we just put one in and find a solution? I understand this, that and the other, but I think we need to just do it. We need to do some of these things, not talk about them forever.
Yeah, I agree with your sentiment, but you're taking 6 parks away from a fairly busy commercial operation.
What's more important, though?
You'll tend to get more flack out of that than probably what the other alternative is. Well, I don't know. What do you reckon, Christine?
The person who did the petition, is right there.
Yeah.
So it would be some of their car park spaces, and they've suggested, the crossing.
Jim, just to throw the cat amongst the pigeons, a single pedestrian overbridge. I mean, I'm serious. Can that be?
You've got to get mobility skills.
No. Pedestrians, not mobility, because at the moment those others use the one down below. I'm just looking at other alternatives, because I understand the 6 car parks are not necessarily for rights, they're also for people visiting that particular shop. Just a thought.
It was interesting the other day, and it was funny, I just noticed it because I was coming down Spa Road just when the colleges was coming out, and they get to Countdown Corner, and there's a whole host of students just walk straight across Tongariro Street, through those things, across the other side of the road. You look at it, you think, my God, somebody's going to get knocked down, but they just walk straight through the traffic.
But there is an island there, though, eh?
No, there's not. Near Countdown.
Yeah, go down.
On Tongariro Street.
There's one there.
No, they walk further down the road, and through those what do they call them? Plastic bollardy things. Yeah. They walk straight across there.
Sorry, but Trevor Knox on Ruapehu Street fixed all of this.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't walk across there. No, they walked round the corner, and across Tongariro Street.
That would have fixed it all. That
Honest? I don't know. I just thought, oh.
How much is an overbridge going to cost?
That'd be 500.
Look, an overbridge, we
million.
looked at an overbridge for Tongariro Street some time ago by Taupo investigating it, and you've got to get quite high because of the heavy traffic, particularly in a place like this. I think Tongariro Street got to about 800k or something like that before it got too much, too hard. Again, you know, tongue in cheek, this is why we had traffic lights for Ruapehu Street, was to allow this to occur.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm happy with the refuge, but I think I need to just. I can recall the situation last time now. It's all coming back to me. It's all coming back to me. And yeah, and basically those shop owners didn't know anything about what was happening, and I think we need to talk to them and just make sure. Okay.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
You have to do what's right, not.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think they're directly affected by this, though. And it could be in a positive way, who knows? It probably will be.
Just to clarify, how many accidents or collisions have we had on that space of road?
Do we know?
No, but we can come back to you with...
All right, what do you want to do? Councillor Park?
I think it's a safety issue as well. If you just can't we just send them a letter and let them know that that's what is going to happen? We'll do it.
I think we should just do it.
Well, I think you've got to go. I think we need to do it, but you've got to go to the shop owners and just say this is what we're going to do,
absolutely,
and see what they say. I mean, as Rosie says, it's come from one of the shop owners there anyway. So.
Yeah, but I bet if those particular people had 5 parks taken outside their shop.
Yes,
that they would be.
I know.
Yeah.
No, that's why we need to just go.
Know. Yeah, so we're happy to do it. Sorry, Councillor Trim.
I just on there shows like there's a bit of footpath that goes up and across to the other side. It's right at the end. Can you just not take out a couple of
On the eastern side, you mean?
Yeah, like our.
And have flashing lights
go back.
every time a pedestrian goes near it.
Back to it.
Just go back. You're talking
about this area?
Yes, yes.
It goes up and across,
yeah.
so if you already knows that it's there, can that not be...
Yeah, because that's Repco there, isn't it? And there's no entrance to Repco.
No, it's around the other side.
Yeah.
Take those 2 car parks or 3 car parks.
It'll be up that end. So you've got the visuals from the eastern side, haven't you? So you'd have to, how many parks you reckon you still have to take clear there?
Through the chair, before we looked at that location, we'd need to put tracking curves on to see whether heavy vehicles could actually get out of that intersection. It could be too close to the...
What do you mean? Heavy vehicles still turn around there, though?
No, coming out.
Doing the right turnout.
You end up with like what we did down at
that's
Street,
stop,
where they can't get out of because you've got the island
good
there.
point. No wonder you guys are engineers. There's so many engineers around here, it's unbelievable.
Your Worship.
You did right.
I recall the conversation with Taupo Hughes Street years ago with the upgrades for the car parking being taken out. I think without, I'll still reserve my decision here, but till I consult it. But I think people get over it, get on with it. I mean,
are you sitting on the fence?
I'm not sitting on the fence, no. I'm saying get on with it. Yeah. But
it
could be a beneficial thing. More pedestrians, less car, but more pedestrians, and safer.
Councillor Jollins?
Look, the mood in the room seems to be to investigate for an installation, and safety is important, but I don't want to we could affect a business's livelihood here, and so I think we need to be sensible. Safety is an utmost priority, but let's just check that there is an issue and that this is the best solution. I mean, we all rush to solutions for safety because that's just the paramount thing. Look, I could not agree more with you, but let's just make sure it's the right solution for the right problem. And we've got this petition, but let's just put some science behind it there and just check what we're dealing with here. And I think we need to give those businesses consideration as well.
Councillor Body? Yep. So we've got two scores of thought. Investigate and action, or action straight away. So who wants action straight away? 2. Okay, the rest is action and investigate. Oh, sorry, 3. So the rest is investigate and action.
Yeah.
Whatever we do, it'll be wrong.
Yeah.
There'll be a petition shortly and a protest.
And a march.
I was thinking the same thing, Councillor, so clear it's not just me.
And a march.
I could see
That's what you
that.
paid the big money for.
Thanks for that.
All right, so have we got a resolution that sort of does that? The council instructs staff to investigate. Yep, there we go. It's all there. Right, all those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Quiet. So, but yeah, the thing is obviously, Claire and Dennis, the time frame here, if we can, I think investigate is just a matter of just talking to an engineer, how many parks we're going to use, and then talk to those retailers there and just say, look, for safety, da-di-da-di-da, you know, you can sell the story, you're good at that.
Yeah.
Well, that, yeah. Well, I can't recall that's what happened last time, but I could be wrong. But anyway, 5.8. Thank you very much. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. I've done that, haven't I? 5.8. Sorry.
Getting carried away.
Yeah. It's like an auction, isn't
We're
it?
on video.
Who sells the most today? Right. Requested 15 minutes parking time. Oh, we're parking again. Time restriction. Space outside First Choice Engravers at Ruapehu Street. Claire.
Thank you. We had a request from ZU Gallery on the corner of Ruapehu and Huhu Street. They had some issues with couriers dropping off their precious artwork, and so requested a loading zone along Ruapehu Street, that block between their gallery and First Engravers. We decided against a loading zone because that would take out a lot more parking spaces, and there is the service lane to the back of the block which they can use to pick up and drop off the artwork and goods. So then we looked at a P15 parking restriction on one of those spaces outside in that block, but on discussion with the compliance team, they basically said it wasn't practical for them to actually enforce it, and it would set a precedence for every other shop to want P15s outside their shop for courier delivers. And the other reason we discounted it was that it's not guaranteed for couriers. It could be used by the general public. So that's why we're declining the request.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Right. Yeah, sure. Yep, traffic control. No, it's a good idea because I need to go to convenience. Oh, Claire? Yep. Oh, I thought it was Vincent. Vincent, sorry. Claire, are you doing 5.9?
Yes.
Good. All right, what's this on? Taupo District Council traffic control device updates.
These are just our standard. These usually go through the FRED committee, but we didn't have the FRED committee last time, so they've been put on this meeting agenda. So our first one is installing a giveaway sign at Mochiwapa. We had a request from the marina there that people were driving straight through, not realising it was a actual road entrance. So that one is for a giveaway priority control. A couple of our zebra crossings, we've had an audit since we had the fatality on Rifle Range Road. We've gone out and done an audit on all our zebra crossings to make sure that they're actually legally compliant. So the next two items are basically to formalise or make them legal and comply. Item 4 is motorcycle parking. Parahapi and Ruapehu Street intersection was recently upgraded, and the curb line was changed outside St John's. Unfortunately, the park on the end of that is too short for a normal vehicle, so we're proposing a motorcycle park on the end. Yep. The next items are in regard to pedestrian refuge islands on Lake Terrace. We're looking at one between Napier Road and Shepherd Road. We're looking at a refuge island there, and another one at the intersection of Ruapehu Street and Lake Terrace, and that's in conjunction with the hashtag Love Taupo sign, to try and make it safer for pedestrians to cross to the sign. So that's just formalising the no stopping.
Just to clarify, Claire, I might have got this wrong. You talked about Lake Terrace, so on Lake Terrace in the vicinity of Ruapehu Street and Napier Taupo, is that right?
Oh, sorry, it's just the one outside Ruapehu Street. We haven't put forward the Napier one.
I didn't see that read today, thank you.
No, it'll be on Lake Terrace, Shepherd Road here. That'll be the next time, yep.
call the meeting back to order, please. Item, are we on, Lisa? Switch on? Yep. Okay, right, we'll carry on with the meeting. 5.10, Council's January performance report, and we'll hear from the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Gareth Green. Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll take the report as read, although the team will go through the main parts, I guess, in terms of the covering the summary there, if you like. Obviously, we've, as you heard from Tony Jurison, we've had a very busy summer over Christmas, but it was also a very good summer. And you've just got there we've just put in there some visitor spend numbers. It's pleasing to see that everywhere in the district is up, but particularly pleasing to see that our smaller areas, Mangakino in particular, is up incredibly strongly, so 17.3%. So Councillor Truman must be doing a lot of shopping in Mangakino at the moment, which is good to see. With all the Freedom Campus.
New vehicle too. Nodding to everything.
And then I guess the other tone of the report, whilst it was written before the public meeting in Turangi, which we had last Thursday, and so it doesn't reflect that meeting, I think what is interesting to note is the number of projects there that involve Turangi in them. So it's actually quite a good thing that it was written before that meeting, because it shows what was in track anyway. And so there you'll see that there's a heck of a lot of infrastructural projects in the way of water, wastewater, some of which you approved today, and sealing, road sealing, etc. So that's a good indication of the amount of work that we are doing. And then lastly, something that you should all be very proud of, as we as officers are, is the last paragraph there around the Standard & Poor's rating that we got this year already. And that's something that we are very proud of, because obviously we've been increased our rating, so that's the independent Standard & Poor's acknowledging that Council's finances are in a very good state. In fact, the report talks about the fact that we would even be higher than that if it wasn't the fact that we're constrained by central government, because we can't be above what New Zealand's rating is. So that's something that you can all be very proud of in terms of working towards that financial strategy that you've had in place for the last 6 or so years.
Thanks very much, Gareth. Okay, go straight to the finances, Mr. Menahan.
Well, just before we do, in the CEO's report, you mentioned our irrigation system 7 to 9, 9 to 7. Why is it that the council watering system doesn't work on those hours?
So we have, before we put the water restrictions in, we did change all of our irrigation to mirror that, and that was purposeful, so that we were showing the way. Whenever we put restrictions in and we don't do that, then we get hammered in the social media space. So we have done that. With the exception, we did on 3 occasions water the Tongariro North Domain when we outside of those hours, and that was at the request of Ironman, given the rounding off of the reserve of what was happening. But that was a deliberate decision, given that event.
It's had some comments, particularly in the circle, that it was going out of hours, but they may well have been wrong.
Incorrect.
Thank you.
Alan.
Thank you, through the chair. Finances at this stage aren't too bad. The challenge is trying to forecast where we're going to be at year end. There's so many fluctuations occurring, whether it's in the investment markets, where just in the month of February our unrealised loss positions improved probably over 200,000. We've got some challenges in that there are some unplanned expenditure that you are very much aware of that is still to occur. And basically the focus has been on trying to meet the capital works that is practical. We've got things like the Turangi and Kinloch wastewater plants and the Taupo water capacity, which we've built into the CapEx forecast, as you see, that we're not forecasting to hit the 44 million, but it is a challenge. And when we look at it, we've so far approved $1 million of unbudgeted expenditure this year. So it is a challenge, and it's part of it too. When we look at the forecast for the year versus the annual plan, has been the timing of the budgets. A lot of the budget lines are evenly spread month by month, so it's another challenge as far as what our final position will be. But rest assured, it's been given 100% attention by staff across the organisation, and we'll try and end up as positive as we can. From the investment perspective, as I mentioned about the movements in the share market, you can see there, for example, we sold 8,000 Rio Tinto shares. In 5 months we made a 20% return. So we're still trying to tap into those opportunities, and it's a situation of what's realised versus unrealised. So
operating expenditure, unfavourable 1.6. Nothing there that sticks out like the proverbial. You can see causes that.
I think part of it, as you can see the explanation there, but some of it's to do with the way we have to treat things for accounting purposes. For example, where we've got unrealised gains, it shows into the income, but unrealised losses go into the expenses. The net position sorts itself out on the bottom line, but it just inflates our expenses, and so there's those little quirky ones. But yes, it is a challenge keeping expenses under control at the moment. We've got so much going on that staff are under pressure, and that's why we're seeing increase in personnel costs.
Body?
I was going to ask this question at some stage. Our sister city exhibition we had at the museum shows here an $86,000 loss. Didn't we get the patronage that we expected through? That's a big loss considering that we put more money in the pot before it opened.
That was the cost that we incurred to run the exhibition, which was the 24 hours a day security and everything else that was related to it.
Can be added to the initial costs, and then we'll see what the overrun was. When would we get that?
Whether they were able to encapsulate the people who paid for a subscription to visit the museum solely for Chujo or general visits to the museum, I'm not sure.
We can discuss that.
Dylan might be in a better position to answer that.
Facilities anyway, so yeah. Cool. Right, investments. Yep. Any questions of Alan?
Just a comment, Mr. Menhen, and thank you for bringing this to our attention. I guess from my perspective, and I'm sure my fellow councillors, it's just us keeping an understanding of those challenges that you are facing, so that we don't get to year end and there are some surprises, which I'm sure you won't do, but this is something we all need to share collectively together as governance, and if there are some issues and some pressure points, please let us know so that we can hopefully assist in some shape or form.
Yep, will do.
Yes, through the chair. Just one more question. So. Yeah, congratulations, Alan. On the Stand and Pause, the upgrade of the, work well done by your department. Just probably is going to be a simple explanation. On page 150, you got on the pie there. Maybe it's just a. Is
this near the end?
It's just on the Treasury Management Report. In the pie, it's got $3.4 million shareholdings, which is obviously equity, isn't it? Equities portfolio on page 150. 150, it's got $3.4 million shareholdings. I'm assuming that's not our total TL equity. No, that's 10.7. I just want to follow that.
That's in the general fund, special funds investment. 100% sure. The
$3.4 million.
Oh, that the 3.4 million in the pie graph on the front of the.
So the question is
shareholdings.
15.7. Then on page 153, you got.
You can see here.
So the question is the shareholdings. What does that pertain to? You mean 3.4 million?
Just in the Treasury Management Report, it's got $3.4 million on the pie. Shareholding.
Who are the
well, so this is part of the equity portfolio. In other words, of the 10.7. Equities, shareholders, shares. I thought they were the same.
We'll look into that and come back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
You haven't actually got one for equities.
I thought it was the.
It'll be just equities, I would say. All right. So democracy and planning, correct? That's you, Tina. Thank you.
So as you can see on page 124, it's all looking reasonably good there. There's no significant budget variations. In terms of the projects, just an update in terms of the flood hazard plan change. So there'd been no appeals lodged by the 20th of February. So there'll be a council agenda item on the 19th of March, and looking at trying to make the plan operative on the 8th of April.
Oh, boy, Nick. Well done.
And on the following page, review of the water supply strategy. A lot of those strategies are going to the representative groups and the community board for part of that consultation process. So they're all under action, and timelines are looking good.
Chairman, can I just ask in regards of the Touring Reserve Management Plan, that seems to be going on forever. When's it going to finalise?
This is the Taringa Tukia.
That's my problem.
2024 in it, Brian. Sorry, Tim.
So we've got this other process that we're doing at the moment, and that needs to be, I believe, completed before we can finalise or continue on with this plan.
So basically, if I could just jump in here, the Manawhaka Whanawara idle process that goes through the RMA requires us to go through certain things. What Jurgen was saying is we've got these other arrangements with you, one of which is the co-governance around the reserves, most of which are owned by the Charitable Trust. So we're trying to tie that through. The team are working well in terms of developing what is a very different document to what would normally be arranged through MFB and the like. So it has to be responsive to what the situation is instead of what's being provided for in the template from MFB.
Cool. Right. Anything else, Tina? No?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Right. Community services, Brian.
Good afternoon. I'm conscious that frustration levels are peaking at extreme for some. We've already lost some councillors, so I'll try and be quick. A couple of things in my area. IN's Building Control Authority audit, really important process we have to go through. It commences next week, so the building team have been building up to this for some time. So a really important accreditation review that we have undertaken for us. So that'll be coming back through audit and risk once it's completed. Team have been looking at fees and charges and looking to link that back clearly to your funding and revenue policy. I'm hoping that given our good meeting with the animal control dog focus group that Councillor Hickling was at not so long ago, that there won't be any surprises in that space for you when you come to review that again. I thought it was a very positive meeting actually.
Good boy. Another clap. Good, good.
It's early days. For civil offence area, we had requests for staff to attend the Nelson fire situation, which was a declared emergency in terms of the Civil Offence Act. Those staff were declined by ourselves and the group, given our situation here. So there are times when that will happen when we can't release people, so just let you know that occur. one other thing is that we're doing a lot of work in our recovery space, recovery planning, and we have a meeting with the group in terms of the group recovery plan and our linkages to that. And also we've got a team going to Waimakariri District Council and also Christchurch to see how they have handled that recovery space and the planning in that area. They're probably the preeminent civil offence area in this space.
What's recovery, sorry?
Recovery, so you have 4 phases in civil offence.
Yep.
And recovery is post the response phase. Your response to declaration is over and we transition into recovery. I like to liken it to actually when the work really starts.
Okay, cool.
And we've also had a invitation from Fonterra. They are disposing of some tankers, potable water tankers, and have indicated to us that they'd be interested to hear from us in terms of whether we could use one. We've given them an affirmative yes. So we'll see how that goes in terms of where they end up with that. It's me.
Right, thank you. Facilities.
I can't talk about cool stuff like unimogs and water tankers that Fox is talking about, but good afternoon. Councillor Boddy, just going back to your question around the museum, the majority of the costs that were attached to that exhibition were paid for by Sujo, but for those things around the base of preparing and meeting their security needs was one of those, which was that 76. As well as that, there was some other fit-outs that we had to do in terms of making sure we could fit the HVAC systems to keep temperature controlled. But in terms of the numbers, no, there were not big numbers, even though to our best efforts we went through to promote nationally through the Chinese communities. We had a number of people that came to visit as part of
I know there's a current exhibition at Te Papa at the moment. Has anyone been to it, or has anyone heard it? Is it they got similar problems, or?
The Terracotta Warriors attract a completely different. Right. I was lucky enough to visit the full 12,000, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
The exhibition at Te Papa isn't necessarily attracting as much attention as those in Shan, but there are certainly people that are travelling from all over the country to go and have a look.
It started with a hiss and a roar, but I haven't sort of seen too much since yet. Yeah, okay, sorry.
So from facilities perspective, obviously we talked about the museum exhibition and a lot of those projects that are going through. So from a Pūtea perspective, all our service delivery measures are on track, but in terms of some of the key work going on, you'll note that the Spa Park, some of those planning documents, recreation strategies and the likes are still working through different phases. So the Mochitere Recreation Reserve, as an example, has started its work under the Māori Heritage Study. That was resulted out of the meeting that you had at Waitatoko with Ngāti Te Rangiita. The archaeologist is underway. And Mr. Tilton and his team are being engaged directly by Linda Walters just to progress that work going through. Likewise, the fitness deck upgrade, that work around what was previously a conservatory is actually the deck regeneration. Otumaheke is currently in a closeout, so the project itself has been completed, and a lot of people, obviously the coffee cart opened last Thursday down at Otumaheke. There was some interesting developments after the opening, specifically around some of the consenting requirements. That's been worked through by our team, and they opened their coffee cart to the public on Thursday. And so in terms of the project itself, it's now working through the closeout to get everything wrapped up. Back to Turangi, the playground renewals, obviously that conversation around the Turangi Reserves Management Plan, the playground work is connected to some of the playground upgrades conversations that we're having here in Taupo. We have a group called Bespoke that are coming in to provide support to the Taupo playground upgrade. They'll also be providing some advice to making sure that we're gleaning benefits from what's happening in Taupo down to Turangi as well. Turangi Tukua have allowed us to work through some process. So whilst that work's going on around the mana whakahono arohe, we are still working through to make sure that we can progress as best we can once that agreement is reached by the negotiation team. And that's me.
Thank you, Dylan. No questions of Dylan? Anna, did you want a question? No. Okay, cool. All right. Right, who's next? Kev, water.
Good afternoon, councillors. I'll whiz through this pretty quickly. The water, in light of no surprises, you'll see the operating expenditure is pretty much on track there. But with the heat that we're having at the moment and the water consumption, the biggest costs in the water area are power and chemicals. So we'll be, forecasting, if we continue this, to be over budget on those lines in particular. Also with Havelock North and all of the requirements around increased surveillance in that space, if you want to call it there, we've had to do a little bit of work as well with our telemetry, electrical engineers and specialists in that space to get them on board to make sure that our compliance is all tickety-boo. And it's quite a work in progress to work our way through that. But just with the water, the upgrade for the Taupo water treatment plant, the stuff will start there in March, in May, but there is a lot of purchasing happening right at the moment, and they're making all the racks for the membranes and everything off-site. So although you won't see anything down there at the moment, things are happening in that space in particular.
Sorry, that's the one lakefront.
Taupo, yeah, the main lake
Okay.
terrace, yes.
Yeah.
It's not very often we get good remarks about some of our capital projects, but Loch Eagles, we've had some from Bruce Bartley, who's the adjacent landowner there, and he's very happy, more than happy with the work that's happening on that space. So it's quite good.
Right.
The connection for Waitanui, obviously that's a little bit behind track, but we are thinking that it'll be completed in March, and just wondering the appetite, because it is a long project. There's been a long gestation of a project, whether there's a ribbon cutting opportunity there or for a grand opening. Just want to.
Yep.
Seems like cool.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, just on that, could I ask? One of the issues seems to be pressure. Is that going to be sorted? And the second question is, how many of those that weren't taking water have gone and decided to take water from the supply? Is that known yet?
No, I don't know those. Sorry. No.
Don't know. Thank you.
We're simply not connected.
When you say one of the issues of pressure, it hasn't been hooked up yet. Hasn't been hooked up yet, is it?
No, so through the chair, the pressure is, the reason why we didn't connect it is because we couldn't guarantee that pressure. We needed to finish the reservoir first, and the reservoir now, you remember that was the company that was in voluntary administration. That's well on its way. I'd hazard a guess 85–90% complete, and that's what we're waiting for, and that will guarantee the pressure out of Waitanui.
And we need to invite the government officials that were involved too.
Absolutely, anyone who provided money and everything, yes.
What's that?
Yeah, anyone who provided us money, yes.
Yes, yeah.
Chairman, all I was interested in, we had that big debate way back about who's not and who's going to. I'd just like to know how many, since the water is down there, even though they're not taking it, have uplifted the offer to go into our supply.
Yep.
Yep, we can provide that. Yep.
Councillor Truman?
Yep.
Sorry, Kev.
Yeah, just a quick question. Just so Mangakino had a couple of non-compliance issues due to data loss. So I see something must happen in July, but then it's happened again in December. So is that a computer problem or?
For Mangakino, it's likely to be the telemetry, which we've had issues on other places as well. And yes, it is intermittent. So, but we're, like I said before, we're spending a bit of money in that space, and getting our advisors around all of the telemetry around all of the different sites.
Right. Transport.
Transport. I've been told to go faster. Hang on.
Transport we'll discuss this afternoon, maybe.
Yeah, I suppose one thing I do want to mention here is Norman Smith Street, the signals. Now, we weren't successful in getting prices through from the market initially.
Where's this for, sir?
For Norman Smith Street.
Oh,
so traffic lights.
Even the suppliers are against it.
No comment. But this is for the work for the traffic lights plus the pre-work coming down the hill, all the traffic calming and others. We extended that, and we have got a couple of prices through as of last Friday. We're going through and assessing those currently at the moment, but this is why we will bring a paper back, because the costs are a little bit higher than what we had budgeted to do that.
How much higher?
We're looking at, well, decisions aren't made yet, but it's around a couple 100,000, and half of that will be from us, half will be from NZTA. Yeah, and so unfortunately this is probably something that we are finding in most of the tenders that we're receiving. The prices that we have put in the estimates are based on prior work 2-3 years ago when we've done recent stuff, and it's just the market out there at the moment is a little bit saturated. We're trying to be smart about how we do that, but we're lucky to get prices, and then B, when we do get them, they are a little bit inflated from what we had initially thought.
Can we get them direct from China?
Sorry?
Someone down south got some lights from China. Oh, they were Christmas lights, sorry.
Yeah, that worked for them.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kevin.
No, that's all right.
Mr. Chairman, could I just congratulate Kevin and his team, because I asked some time ago when money was transferred from another activity to an activity, it would be recorded, and has been, so I thank you, Kevin, for that. Even though at this stage I don't really understand it, but at least you're doing it.
You're welcome.
At least you're consistent. Right,
So,
we talked about wastewater, haven't we? Yeah, we no, wastewater next.
Wastewater's next.
That wasn't wastewater going down Waikato River.
It was definitely not wastewater.
Good.
What page are we on here? Yeah. So really most of those have been well articulated before. I think there's probably not much more there unless there's any questions. I'll take it as read.
On wastewater?
Yeah.
Just in regards to Kinloch, it states down here, a review is due by the end of February. Is that actually right? Because the end of February is in a couple of days.
So end of February, yes, we're received, and we're just digesting that now. And it's in the draft form, the report. It'll take a couple of weeks to get through into the final report. So yes, we have received it, but haven't fully digested it yet.
Right, stormwater.
Again, with solid waste and stormwater, I'll take them as read. Any other particular questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry to prolong this. I made a note in November, which was the last month we actually got all this full details. That circle under solid waste was all green. Have I missed why the reason that part of it's orange?
The reason why it'll be orange is because of the actual volumes we're getting through the landfill will mean that we won't be able to meet those requirements. And that's the same as we got last
year. So they're lower than what we expected, or higher?
Higher.
Higher.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. It's there. Thank you.
Okay. Right, I'll quickly wrap up with economic development. So the only thing there is the airport work. We've got a workshop booked in for the 21st of March, I think, to start discussions around the work we've had done by Airbus. That's a joint TAA and council meeting.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, John. Anything? Yeah. Any questions, John? Economic development? That's it? Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Gareth and team, for the report. So there's a resolution there just to report be accepted, be received, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Williamson. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. 5.11, adoption of the draft consultation document for the amendment, the long-term plan for audit.
Sorry, Your Worship, can I just interrupt? I'm not sure if there's a standing order in particular or what there is, but, and this is a bit probably late in the piece, but in regards to agenda item 5.3, I believe from some correspondence I've had that because of the extended submission period, it is highly likely we're going to lose this business development. So I don't know, to have, you need 75% to revoke a resolution. Can you do it at the same meeting? Right. Pardon? Right. So therefore I would like to move that we revoke resolution 5.3 and reopen that for an amended resolution.
Can I ask through the chair what new information has come to light?
Well, as we all know, businesses move at a far different and quicker pace than do councils, and through there were certain timelines that the flyline people had in place so that they could be open in time for, you know, peak tourist periods and whatnot. Because of the way he was treated post leaving the chamber by members of the public, and also through this business case being extended by a month through the consultation period being longer, we have a significant risk of this project not going forward. And I just would hate for us to not have the opportunity to have this go out for consultation and be looked at and stick within a sort of the Reserves Act guideline for a potentially quite a good economic development project.
Can I ask where that information's come from?
Enterprise Great Lake Taupo.
Via email or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anyone want to discuss? Because
so if I've moved it, I need a seconder.
I'm just as chair happy to put it to the table, but what was I going to say was, you know, there could be stuff out of the public consultation process that could, you know, involve 3 or 4 months' work. So I'm just trying to think. Yeah, what's the appetite of the council? Bearing in mind that two councillors are left. You know.
Can I ask a question of Mr. Tahu in terms of iwi consultation? Act in haste, repent at leisure. Is a month going to be enough?
There's 2 forms of iwi consultation. So you've got a good neighbour policy, which is that Te Whare Mighty Trust Board are the owners of the bed of the river immediately beside. My mouth's big enough. Secondly, you've got hapu conversations, and just generally iwi aren't known particularly to work to timelines offered by statutory bodies, and it's subject to volunteers being able to participate. So I'd be loath to say a month is long enough, but certainly if we can give every opportunity at the earliest for consideration of the proposal, then I think that's the best way to work.
Because one of my concerns is if we rush the process too much, it could be counterproductive to the long-term conversation. I guess I hear what Anna Parker's saying as well.
Especially the way the legislate's set up, that comes all after the license, proposed license. So yeah, I don't know. What's the feeling?
So,
Barry, you're looking nervous.
But I mean, remember these guys were saying to us that it's unlikely that we'll need a resource consent. So this is really based on the reserve management plan, is my understanding of that conversation today. So the decision will be with us.
Yep. So what you're saying, just to confirm
Put the speaker on, Barry. Sorry.
Are you saying, Anna, to just go through the standard consultation process of 1 month?
Correct. Just through the chair, I just to add to that, I just think that the more affected parties were actually in the room today and quite aware of the next step. So they are going to be writing submissions the minute they see that that article in the paper. So I would hate to lose a great opportunity based on a 4-week extension to the minimum required under the Reserve Management Act. That's all. I'm just a little bit more haste to show this business that we are serious about it being a possibility in that reserve.
So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if it's helpful at all, but what I would add is, in my experience, regardless of its Resource Management Act, Local Government Act or Reserves Act processes, is that it seems that it's like the philosophy of people when they're writing their university assignments, that regardless if you leave it 1 month, 2 months or 6 months, they will all the submissions come in on the last day regardless, no matter how much time you give them. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that happens time and time and time and time again.
I mean, I'm happy to second your motion Hannah, in support. I guess the learning for me, though, is this was sitting on EGLT's desk for 6 months. We've been a bit blindsided, and I am worried that there will be some unintended consequences of rushing this through. We talk about economic development is important, but this development might help develop that site and further reach its potential, but it is a significant site of interest to a lot of people, so it's going to generate a lot of interest, and it could backfire on us if we don't give adequate time. But I hear what you're saying, and I will support you.
Yeah, Your Worship.
Just going on, the neighbours that were there, they're the ones that's been triggered by one neighbour who saw some machinery in there. So,
we had help by a road.
Yeah. So, but anyway, who was next? Sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm supportive of Councillor Park and Councillor Jollins, and in support of that. I think, obviously, I've been here a long time, and it's really a matter of it's really, I think Rosie might have mentioned, what we can do, concentrate on it rather than what we can't do. There are processes to go through. We are open for business to encourage industry and activities here for the benefit of the whole community, especially our economy. So, and notwithstanding the fact that there will be some further consultation, I think I would agree with the commentary just up to now.
And just through the chair, I've just been advised by Ms. Jakes we don't actually have to revoke and reform an amended resolution. We can alter.
Alter the resolution?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, so you can alter the resolution by changing the 2 months, so public consultation, just 1 month.
Oh, just 1 month?
Just to be clear that it is 1 month.
And is that because it's still in the same meeting?
Yes.
Is that 1 month from today or confirming the minutes?
It's 1 month from notice of public advert.
From the public advert,
yes.
Okay.
And you'll need 75% of you to agree to that change.
John?
Is it 31 days in a month or the 30 days? That's the issue. I'd like to move an amendment that we have 6 weeks, and the reason I do that, we had quite an interesting party in the chamber today. They listened to the debate, and we said 2 months. I'm prepared to have that compromise of the 2 weeks off, but I think in fairness to those people, they're going to say, why did you do that? And quite frankly, if that gentleman hadn't seen something crossing the road and some activity there, this has been going on for some time, we wouldn't have known. And that really peeves me off. At the last minute, we've told about it. So I would move an amendment to 6 weeks.
So we'll just need to deal with this one first, and you're foreshadowing that if this isn't passed, then we'll go to your one.
Okay.
I'm just Jakes is the expert. I'm not. If that happens, it happened one time before. What I believe would happen is I move the amendment that's then lost. If it's lost, which it won't be, of course. If it's lost, then we go to the substantive motion, which is Councillor Parks.
No. So Councillor Park has moved an amendment, seconded by Councillor Jollins. People can talk against that motion.
Okay.
So you basically talked against it?
Correct.
Yes. Anyone else want to talk against it? Yep.
Certainly standing orders don't indicate that. I think
so. You can talk against it.
You can talk for it or against it.
Against first.
Barry, the time you're referring to is if the debate's still going. So often during the debate, you've already moved and seconded it, and someone will raise another good point, and then it's, do you wish to have that? But that's before the vote.
So you're both still right, but
that's a different stage.
So by the goodwill of the chairman, I've allowed Councillor Park to introduce this new item, as it were. Some a good point. So, Councillor Hickling, do you want to speak against the motion amendment? move that. I'll move that suggested amendment. Have we got the words in it? Have we just taken the one mark to one mark? Yeah. So we've had a mover, Councillor Park, seconded by Councillor Jollins. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Yep. Okay, so the amendment is carried. Yep, we got 75%. Yep, cool. All
Mr.
right.
Chairman.
Sorry. Yeah. Yes. How do we don't know technically who they were, apart from the public submitter.
So they'll be notified anyway when through the process. We'll serve notice on them of the fact, and that'll have the time frame in it that is a month. That's right. That's right.
But as a courtesy,
I think we need to tell them today.
Nathan, is it possible as a courtesy just to ring Barry? Have you had any contact with him, Barry Finlay, the submitter, the public warrant?
We've got his details. We can give him a call.
Yeah.
We'll have his details because he spoke at the public forum.
Yeah, I've got his details, so I can forward them to you.
Mr. Chairman, just I don't like doing that, but just for clarity, I do need to push out that there's absolutely nothing unusual about the process that's been undertaken here, unusual or unjust. It's actually the absolutely right thing that's happened, and it's the same as any other concession and lease that's gone through. So I'd heard some comments about it being unusual or the wrong way that the process has gone. I do object to that the staff have simply taken a licence application that's come forward, have presented it to you, and it's now your opportunity to decide whether or not you put that out for consultation and submissions. It's the normal process, and it's the process as provided for in the legislation.
The only thing I slightly disagree with Mr. CEO, normally an applicant comes in and teases us first, and teases us first for a workshop or something like that. That's just the normal.
I'd say any other licence I can think of doesn't do that. So the bikes on the Lake Terrace or anything like that, they don't. They simply come in and do like what we have today.
But they don't set a tent up on the chance that they're going to get the licence.
The tent down there.
No, I think what Councillor Boddy is referring to is these works that are already appear to have been conducted, and I think this process, I have to disagree with you slightly, Mr. Green, is not as ideal as it could have been, and I really would have liked a heads up, because I think this is a sensitive area and it needs to be managed carefully.
Some of those concessionaires normally give us a call individually and say, hey, this is coming through. But anyway, it's done, and it's great.
Probably wrong for them to do so.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. We will carry on. Thank you. 5.11. So adoption of the draft consultation document. Okay. Philip and Hadley. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. So the item you have in front of you is part of the process for amending the long-term plan. It's a very similar process to the process we ran last year when we adopted the long-term plan. Essentially, this step sees you adopt a draft consultation document for Audit New Zealand to conduct a review. They will do that over the next couple of weeks, and then on the 19th of March we will return with a audited consultation document that is also in the design version. So the document you've got today is simply a Word version. Like we did last year, we'll bring back that designed and audited version to you to adopt for consultation, which starts in early April. So there are a couple of points that I'd like to just run you through in terms of the actual consultation document itself. So on page 159, there's a highlighted green towards the bottom of the page, consultation events. So I believe tomorrow we'll be sending out some sort of communication to you, just seeking some feedback on where and how you'd like to conduct consultation during that month-long process. I know last year we did a variety of stops around the district, so essentially just getting feedback from you on what you'd like to do there. Unless you've got feedback now, but we can get that later. Just moving through to page 166. It's in relation, there's another green patch towards the bottom of that page. Essentially it was just highlighted just while we're getting some confirmation that can be removed, the green highlighting can be removed, but the words can remain for that option. Going through to the next page, so this is page 167. Again, there's some more green highlighting there. again relating to obligations or no obligation under the Public Works Act. So that first one, the words can remain, the green highlighting can disappear. The second bullet point there, which starts 300 square metres can be leased, and it says in brackets, we're awaiting further advice on this matter. We would suggest just removing that, we're awaiting further advice on that matter, and adding in for purposes ancillary to council's functions. So that would become 300 square metres can be leased for purposes ancillary to council's functions. If you're satisfied with that, we can just get that amended before it goes to audit. I think I'll pass over to Philip now just to clarify a few more queries that he has.
We talked last time we came and we said we'd bring back further information on the IL4 options, being the 120 square metres of the EOC Emergency Operations Centre, or the entire building, and we've got some more information on that around the costings and the difference in the costings, and there's some real reductions in what we first thought. We first thought there was going to be a much bigger gap between 120 square metres and an entire building. And there's been some stuff done, talk with Brian Fox and several others about the advantages that might exist, but basically you need to kind of give us an indication whether you'd like to go with 120 square metres of IL4 compliant building or the entire building. And the costings for each are highlighted on those pages right in front of you.
So each of the options, so option 1, 2, 3 and 4, you've got the capital cost with the 120 square metres of IL4, and then in blue highlight is the capital cost with the full building being IL4, just so you can compare those two total capital costs.
What's the standard template on that? You know, like council buildings around the country, are they all IL4, the total, or total building, or how does it work?
I don't think there's hardly any IL4 buildings in the country, is there?
Yeah, did you want to talk to that, Brian?
So, Your Worship, just in respect to the question about EOCs around the building and council buildings being IL4, probably there is a lack of IL4 buildings inclusive of an EOC around the country right now, because a lot of those buildings are 20, 30, 40 years old and they haven't come up for that discussion. So this is really about the opportunity has come up for that discussion now. I've had discussions with the Ministry about that. It'd be fair to say they'd be very keen for the community to have that conversation about their appetite for risk. In an event, it's not a council building, it's a community building. Clearly there is a desire from the Ministry for resilience within councils, those that have critical infrastructure, clearly we all do. So yes, Your Worship, quite right. As it currently stacks up around the country, no.
So it's about $1 million difference, is it? Two?
On the 2 Wharatara Street, it's $1.6 million extra.
Okay, so what's the appetite? Yeah. Lady in waiting.
No, I'm thinking I need something, some sustenance, maybe some almonds or something. I just think for going out for consultation, we're better to go out with the full IL4. I think if we went out saying partial and then through whatever reasons or submissions, or we make a different decision, I mean, I just don't, the only thing I can think of is like the AC bars will rise the price and then we've made a completely different decision. So I think to be totally transparent and upfront, we should go out for a full. I also think we'd probably have better access to some central government funding with the resilience side of it. Also, surely we're going to be a much better bet for insurance companies on the structure if we are super safe. And also, I mean, we don't know what the future of councils looks like as far as, you know, if the government were to remove the 3 waters or whatever else, we've then got a A-class corporate structure that would be quite a reasonable, it would be a good on-sale product as opposed to it being partially IL4 for whatever reason, because moving forward, I mean, you can just see with, landlords have to have heating for tenants to a certain degree, you've got to have double glazing, you've got to have this, you've got to do that. If we're going to do this once, we might as well do it properly. So I would suggest going for the full IL4 build.
Through the chair, I have a different view this time round. I think we need to be seen to be prudent with the way we approach this process, and I am concerned that if we go for an entire IL4 building, what impact that has on leasing and potential developers coming forward as well. And I just want, when we go out with the options, I just want to be able to compare apples with apples and everything to be as fair and clear, and I think the IL4 has a potential to confuse some of the issues.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone else?
Just to make the comment, I don't think an L4 building for civil defence needs to be in the centre of town. We've had this discussion before about where it is at the moment. The advantage there is if there was a major catastrophe, and while the area at 2 Wharatara Street is not built out, there's certainly access there with that big green area. So whether that's part of the building, I don't know, but we need to make it quite clear what we are going to do. And it's a bit like, should the bus stop be at the building? That's not for us to decide, that's out for consultation. Just the other comments I've got very quickly, we talk about the lease proposal being a building where we can all be in, but we don't say the alternative is to stay where we are. And I sent an email to Hadley in regards of some of the costings, and because Phil's here, I'll just quickly pass that. One of them was in regards of the 2 Wharatara Street Park, the 80 was going to be 1.1, but now it's $500,000. And then when we look at the lease option, it's 1.7. I take that to be per year, and yet we're paying $380,000 at the moment for 6 sites. I don't know what the hub is, so I'm just wondering whether we're feeding the wrong information. It may be more cost effective actually to stay where we are, but that's a debate for the public to make. There was something else I had down here. Oh, that was the car parks. It's just that we seem to have such a variety of different prices being given. I'm not sure which is the right one to go to the people for. Maybe higher than it could be, but that's not really the question.
Just in relation to the car parks, that of 1.1 million did reduce to 500, so it went the right way. But it was information we gathered over a weekend to present to you on a Monday. We said we'd firm those figures up, and we firmed them up based on information that we now know on work that we've recently done. So the $500,000 is much more accurate than the 1.1 that we originally put out there.
I haven't come to grips yet with 1 minute. We had a property that was X, then we took 9 million off, but it was still the same X. I still am fascinated with that one, and I haven't come to grips with that yet.
Councillor Hickling?
Yeah, surely if we're going to be building a new building, well, the new building code will dictate the majority of the building, and that's got to come up to a certain earthquake standard anyway. And what we're talking about is a special area.
It's a bunker
Type arrangement for management services or emergency services. So I think, it's not as though we're building a substantial building. We've got to build it to the present building codes, which includes quite substantial earthquake requirements as a building. So I don't know whether I'm in favour of the whole building being IL4.
Going back to your story box idea, could we say build 1,200 square metres in IL4, but in a story box on the side saying it's a possibility to build an IL4 for an extra amount or something like that in the consultation document? Is that a pain?
You go first.
No?
Well, we have actually already got a story box in there regarding the civil defence relating to IL4 that's written at this stage for the whole building to be IL4. Obviously that could be amended to just say that it's 120 square metres. I think we just have to give some further thought to whether we actually would ask a question of the community. I'm not sure it's necessarily a I suppose it would be up to you, but whether it's a question you want to be actually posing to the community as to whether they are making a call around whether it's 120 square metres or the full building, or it's a decision made by council.
Possibly, yeah. Cool. Kirsty?
Yeah, well, I just think build it once, build it right, and if we're going to, like in time, if the standards change, and then we need to therefore make the building stronger, that's going to cost us a lot more in the long run. And well, we don't know what the future's going to say, but we don't know that.
Well, that going to be
Yeah,
stronger
I'm just saying in the future.
They change everything.
Yeah, and you look at
that's what Kirsty's trying to get.
Yeah, so I'm just saying if the standards go up, we've already got the top standards, and we build it now, it's going to be cheaper than in the future trying to strengthen
You
it.
just argued for release, thank you.
Whatever we need to do, we need to give these guys some guidance today between us so they can go out. We're not going to sort out all these decisions today, but we need to give these guys a position. My position is 120, but we all need to have our views and decide which way we want to go.
Right, so we'll go round. Perhaps, sorry, Philip, do you want to add something?
It's probably just worth noting that the building requirements and the national standard, building code is one thing, in the IL4, it's not necessarily about the building collapsing around us. It's about the services being able to continue while the catastrophe's going on. So it's all the activities that happen, function inside the building, redundancies and those type of things. That's where a lot of the cost is.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. In that small space, but the entire building.
So yeah.
Your Worship, if I could just
Yep.
Add something to this conversation, and I'll pick up first on the point that Councillor Park mentioned about insurance. So I've had discussions with our insurers. I was interested to see what their views would be. One of the questions I asked was, would an IL4 make any difference to the premiums we pay? You'll appreciate that every above ground asset we transfer the financial risk to insurance. And they said, not really, Mr. Fox, because you're part of a big collective. I then said, in terms of the volatility of the insurance market going forward, and John, if you can recall in your first year on the council, you asked me a question, can we get this insured? And I think I answered you at the time, I think it was an artwork or something, I can't remember now. I answered you at the time, we can get anything insured if we're prepared to pay for it. I couldn't give you that answer now, because the answer going forward is the insurance mightn't be available. So the question I put to our insurers was, in terms of transferring this risk under your current insurance strategy, would an IL4 be in a greater position to attract insurance cover than an IL2? And the answer was yes. So I think that's a factor in terms of that side of it. In terms of the emergency management side in the building and the interdependency, and it's a critical interdependency between council staff and the organisation and an event. In Christchurch, the EOC stood up, every building around it fell down. And there was a whole range of issues around that, and they were IL2 buildings. So what are you going to do? Have an EOC sitting in an IL2, adjacent to or within an IL2 building, and everything's falling down around you, and expect staff to still be functioning in that space? That didn't happen in Christchurch. So there's some real, it is actually a very serious consideration for you.
Okay. All right.
Noting, Mr. Fox, we can have an emergency management centre that is not in our CAB.
Cool. We're not. Yeah. What I'm getting from Philip here is not just emergency management. It sounds like the whole operation. Yeah.
Well, if I could just add further, Your Worship, the Chief Executive, during an event, is required to maintain service to the fullest extent possible under the CDM Act, or the Council is actually required to. So that's business continuity. That's the rest of the business while this event's being managed and run. So there is that side to it as well. I think it's section 64 of the CDM Act, if anyone wants to have a look at it.
Okay, so leave it in the IL4?
I think we need to go out in consultation with the bigger picture.
Okay, Darren? Kirsty?
No.
Yep. I'm no, but I'd also like to put in the business of the lease. At the moment we say we prefer basically to have a building with everyone's in. Now what I don't want to see happen is that people come along and submit on the best cost effective is to stay as we are, to be told that wasn't part of the consultation process. Hence I'd like that written in. So the lease is option A, where someone else builds the building, we lease that, or B, we stay as we are. And that's why I really need to find out the lease figures in a new building, someone's going to come forward, whether it's Cooper or anyone else, compared with what we're paying now.
Your Worship.
They'll have to come forward with an IL4 proposal as well.
Your Worship, I may add something out to that discussion. Genesis, the new building, the Genesis building in Hamilton, which houses Genesis, obviously, and the Waikato Group Emergency Management Office. And Councillor Park, you are a frequent visitor to that building. That's total IL4. It's a lease building. So there is work in that space around the country we can tap into, understand that better.
Okay.
All right. Your Worship.
We've got more yays than nays.
Your Worship, sort of add a comment. And we went out to consultation over 12 months ago when we had the issue with the Lake Terrace building. There were about 6 options given then, and from memory, I'll be correct if I'm wrong, there was a general consensus that would accept a new building, a council building, whether it was a lease, or owned or whatever. So I think, obviously we've been down that track with consultation and with respect. At the moment, I think, well, obviously the circumstances are everybody's all around the town, and to me it's not ideal, but I think probably the consultation process will come through. We'll probably support that. The other question I have is with respect, and I think with the IL4 thing, it's just really a matter of being like trying to be a bit visionary, like think 20 years down the track, notwithstanding what may be happening in that building, who it is. It's the same with the car parking. We're going out with 2 options, with the 80 firm car parks, and whether people might tick both boxes. We're only going car parking, but for example, in the future, the town's growing, we need extra parking, and that will be something I thought. That's why I asked at the meeting at the Sun Court whether it should be actually included. I know we're trying to compare apples with apples with 4 options, but in terms of the cost, to me that would have made sense to actually include it, and then people can go through the consultation, see whether they want it or not. So that's my view anyway.
I mean, I'm happy to support the majority view. All I ask is whatever you do, that it's very, very clear and it doesn't get muddied in with the numbers and skews the options either way.
Mr. Chairman, just do need to clarify for, and if you look at on page, what is it? 164 under the long-term lease. At the moment, this is written in accordance with your discussions previously, which actually is the lease document is only providing for someone to build a building for us and to those same dimensions that we're talking about. So now IL4 and all those other things. So essentially, our understanding from the discussions you've had to date is that the status quo is not an option, and so the situation that you talk about, Councillor, that submissions coming in talking about status quo, that would be our response in the way that this is written now, and that's taken because that was our understanding of where we've got to, which was that current status quo is unsustainable, and it is about having a new building, whether it's that we build it or whether or not somebody else builds it is up for discussion and to see what's there. But the status quo of the different leases is not built into this consultation document currently.
Well, I actually sleep quite a lot. I'm just wondering what I've missed, because what we're doing at the moment is putting out a draft to be approved by the audit that will then come back and go out for submissions. I can't see anything in the back of my mind that said, because we continually have said that leasing could be a build or stay as we are. I've seen no resolutions of this council to say contrary, so I'm a bit miffed as to how that assumption arises.
Just on the resolution, so at the meeting at the Sun Court, there was a resolution passed to include 4 items for the consultation document, 4 options, for the consultation document. That's what we took to include into this draft that we've brought to you today.
I'm sorry. It doesn't really matter what was passed then, it's what the community may choose to do. They may tell me to go and see a taxidermist. That's fair enough, I don't mind that. But at least they'd be given the chance. It's not set in concrete. So if you get what I mean, it's up for debate what we do in the future.
Right. Okay, I think Barry wants to raise the...
And I want to raise a couple of words in here as well.
They're dropping like flies.
But I do want to raise this, and I raised it earlier today, because there are 3 of the options within the consultation document that doesn't include the museum or museum concept. I think we've raised the expectations of our arts community. I perceive that there is support. We're all aware that our museum is not fit for purpose. It's got issues. I would like dearly to see a story box in the consultation document, some way that enables submissions either to support or against as probably a new standalone museum somewhere. I don't know quite how to word that, but that's my concern. I think even from a point of view of probably the discussions that we've had with Te Wharetoa, if we don't put something in this consultation document, I've got a feeling that we could probably lose all the negotiations we've had with the Te Wharetoa in terms of a joint venture museum. I do have concern about probably like the 20.8 million for a new museum, but I know that there will be certain monies that's available for the building of a new museum, and probably to our ratepayer it's probably only a third of that. So somehow I would like to get that promoted in the document as a storyline.
So I think
I need some help from the officers, please.
I think Hadley and Philip have done some words around it, because you're quite right, without that being in there, the same situation Council Body raised before would be the case. If people submitted saying we want a museum, without it being in there we couldn't actually add it even if we wanted to. So Hadley has done some work on some words.
And if it just helps ease your thoughts, I attended a presentation that was done by Mr. King to the Friends of the Museum last night, and they are very much talking the same language you are, and I expect we will see a submission from them in this process for those exact reasons.
So just on that, so on page 169 there's a story box headed cultural precinct, and it talks about if option 4 does not proceed, council intends to consider the opportunities for a museum and improvements to Story Place during the development of the next long-term plan in 2021. I think, well, there's probably a couple of options. We could either reword that, or we could leave that wording the same but add an additional question into the consultation document, which would go along the lines of council essentially repeats that and asks the community, do they agree? We could have 2 tick boxes, one that says consider as part of the next long-term plan in 2021, or we could so we could have a second question, include the funding about 33 million as part of this long-term plan amendment. So that would be a third question sitting within the document.
That's the other thing that
Yeah, that's not.
The 33 million. I can't justify that. No way. Because that's improvement to Story Place, improvement to Tongariro Street. It don't even from the ratepayer, they automatically think, what do you do? To the ratepayer, it's only going to be a third of that, or not even a third of that.
On that same page 169, if you see the first bullet point there, museum about 20.8 million. So Hadley, could we have those same words but change it to, because I think we're only just talking about the museum at this point as the key, so have it the 20.8 but then some words around but the cost to ratepayers being a third, because that's what we've been advised by our advisors, that it's third, so that people know that it's a third. Actually the actual cost to them is a third of 20.8 mil roughly.
So what's So with that that language, using that language, can you put a placeholder in the annual plan along with the amendment just going forward?
If you were of a mind to, we could put, under the preferred option, we could put the 20.8 mil and obviously have some income lines if you wanted to do it, actually put it in there. You could put the museum in there in year 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the issue we're struggling with, though, is that this consultation is about a home for the CAB building, and let's not get the two trains in track, because I guess if there is an appetite through the consultation process for people to say, hey, yeah, we want to do something on the domain, then they might have to set a whole new track of discussions. So I urge some caution about how you wrap that up.
Yeah, but you see, this is what I get concerned about. Initially, we had 4 options for the Tongariro domain, all included a cultural precinct, which was a museum and cultural centre. We all agreed that that was a fantastic idea. And for me, I'm just wondering which was the catalyst. I think the museum and the cultural centre was a catalyst for the administration block. But according to some of the writing, the administration block was the catalyst for the precinct. So, you know, let's support. Look, the arts people have been let down so many times in this community, and we've got to a point now where I think we've either got to stand by what we want our community to look like and look after all the artifacts that we've got, and at least put some effort into the consultation document so that we can gauge the public's interest in it, surely.
So what I'm hearing Barry saying, what I heard you say, Gareth, is that we need to make reference to this, otherwise we can't consult and take the feedback. Okay, well, we need to...
Hadley, so we can put this story box in, perhaps change the figure, or put those figures in there too. Museum 20.8.
Yes, we can. Yeah, I'm just taking Neil's point. We will obviously we're required to show the rates impact and the debt impact. So we will just need to think about how that's presented. But that is a requirement that audit will be looking for.
And we would tick yes and no. Is that possible?
Well, oh, sorry, I'm just waiting. We might bring it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Oh, can you switch to me, Shane?
We can put that in the words. So in the words we can say it's 20.8, of which a third will be ratepayer funded.
Okay.
Sorry to take time, but
no, look, you know what? This conversation will unfold.
We didn't actually debate when we made the third option of Thursday whether we were going to continue with the music.
Or the 22 is not getting the bus stop. Why are we including 9.3 for the Story Place and 3.2 for Tongariro? That's the future. Let's get the bloody building out of the way, then go to the next step. Because there's no appetite for debt.
So just amending that to 20.8?
20.8, of which approximately a third will be funded by rates.
So we're just referring to the museum, not the improvements to Story Place. Okay.
Because I think if the community was of mind to do this, the next decision of council, once we get through all of that, would be about where does the museum go. And if the office isn't there, then the current location isn't necessarily the right location.
So you want the now, Barry, not 3 years' time.
So the first part of that was 2021.
Yeah. So this is the current story box as it sits in the draft. So I think we can probably leave that, if that's your view, that it is an assumption it will be done as part of in 2021. However, we are now asking the community whether they agree with that.
So it gives you the opportunity at the end of submissions of people coming in and saying that they do actually want to do it, that you can make that decision now, which you couldn't previously.
So where will it be in the document? Will it be after that?
The story box. So currently, well, it's essentially Well, there's the existing story box, so we're just going to remain with that story box, which says that the work will be done as part of the next long-term plan. However, we're asking whether the community agrees with that, which is a question that will sit in the consultation document form.
Maybe we should add that to the story box. So we give two options in the story box.
Still accept yes and no. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that question now reads.
That's all there.
I'm still referring to the consideration.
Yeah, so the presumption on this is that it's 2021 and the community tells you differently rather than the other way around, that you want it earlier and the community says, no, we don't.
And therefore, you'd be able to make that change later in this process, following that consultation.
Could you add that story box? The option.
I just have a couple of comments about wording on a couple of things. Can I just share those with you?
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, I will just clarify one thing. So when we have spoken to audit previously, they were clear that we had to have a comment in there around if the funding sources don't eventuate. So we've said that a third will be funded by rates, but there is an assumption, and there is a risk saying that if funding sources do not eventuate, the construction may be delayed. That's audit requiring us to put that in there. Yeah.
And to be honest, I think that's fair. I'm just going to give you, I know everyone's getting weary. I love long council meetings. A question from me. My main concern relates to the leasing comments. I mean, I looked at the advantages and disadvantages and the risks and assumptions on the basis that was this all a level playing field, making sure that they're accurate and fair, they're based on facts and not opinions. I'm having trouble with one of your comments about disadvantages. This is under leasing, long-term costs are greater than owning. I think this is potentially misleading because we don't know what those developers are going to come back with those costs. And also I refer back to the Becker-Collier report, which states different. So I think by putting that point in, you skew it, and I'd like to see it taken out. Please. Yeah.
Well, just on Councillor Jolin's comments, if we go to 164, is it covered there? Annual lease costs, where it's got 1.7, not covered? Okay.
It's way up front under the disadvantages, and I think it potentially skews the outcome, so I would request, please, that it would be removed.
Yep. So just to confirm. So just confirming, removing the third bullet point under the disadvantages, long-term costs are greater than owning. Okay. Yep, so just to reiterate, this will now go off to the auditors. Obviously, once they've given their opinion, no changes can be made. So this really is your last opportunity for any changes. We will bring back that designed and audited version to you for the 19th. In addition, we'll also bring the actual amendment. So that is literally the changes to the pages in the current long-term plan, which will essentially be just a bunch of financial tables that are being amended, because that has to be included as part of the consultation process for people to view. So 19th of March is when we bring back the consultation document, and you'll adopt it that day for consultation. And then consultation begins on the 2nd of April, runs through till the 3rd of May. Yes, so it is that week, the 4th of June. I believe that the Monday is Queen's birthday. So at this stage, we've got the rest of that week set aside for hearings and deliberations, essentially Tuesday through Friday if it's needed. Is that the weekend, is it? Or the following week? Okay.
Should be.
Obviously, it's dependent on how many submitters wish to be heard. I think it was 3 days for the long-term plan last year, so, yeah. Yes, this is right on the schedule that we were originally planned. Yep. Yeah, that'll obviously be as amended to take incorporation of all those amendments. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, just to save time, can this be tabled to our next council meeting? Sorry, it can't be. Okay. Is there a reason for that? Is the time frame? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Through you, Your Worship, this paper, Cheney's done a runner on you, so I'll take it as read. The paper asks for terms of reference to be accepted for a new joint committee that's required out of legislation coming from the settlement. The terms of reference have been provided by the Waikato Regional Council, who are administering that joint committee, and we also ask for 2 appointees and 2 alternates to be offered from this council.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. We did circulate this previously, and the suggestion would be that the mayor and the deputy mayor were the first representatives.
No, so the suggestion under 2 is that it's the first one is the mayor, and the second one is Councillor Williamson, and then under 3 that the deputy mayor and Councillor Park are the alternates.
So there's one missing there.
No, so under 2 appoints His Worship and Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
And then under 3 appoints councillors, there's a plural there, Park, and the deputy mayor as the alternates.
Okay, so Park, no, that was Truman.
Oh, Truman, sorry,
Yes,
Truman, sorry, Truman.
Basically, the idea was that obviously Councillor Truman, with that Rokawa aspect, which is the big part of the river. Apologies. So it just makes sense. Apologies. Do I have any, or you happy to move them? Second?
Happy to second.
Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Members' reports? No, council engagements, you're right.
I've just got to flick between screens, but you've heard about the additional workshop on the 21st of March for the Airbus proposal, and there's 2. The Airbus. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What date was that, sorry?
I think it was the 21st of March that
okay.
Mr. Ridd said. Yes, we will. And then there's a couple of requests in terms of some training and attendance at the recovery fact-finding down in Christchurch.
So how many people we've got going down for that? Staff going as well? I'm sorry, Brian.
Yes.
That particular one in terms of governance would be Councillor Park. Councillor Kingley was going, but unfortunately had to withdraw. So Andy Hemmer, Chair of TT, is attending. He's a member of the committee as well.
And some stuff.
Recommendations for the 2.
Yep.
Well, I'll move them without speaking to them for a long period. I'll just move that the attendance of Councillor Jolins at the Making Good Decisions Chair, whatever that word is, 2-day course in Auckland, and approve Councillor Park and Councillor whoever that may be to travel to that emergency management. So I'd move that way.
Mr. Hemmer.
Mr. Andy Hemmer, I'd move that way.
And receive the information relating to the dates on the meetings?
Yeah, on those dates. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, moved, seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Members' reports?
Kia tau kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tō tātou ariki, ei, raiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga, ki te wairua tapu, ake ake, āmene.